This is day 4. I had to think for a second. This is Thursday, or Thorsday, as we like to say in my household. So this is day 4 of Blue Talk's Amplify Your Message. I am your host, Laura Lake, and today, on this side, we have somebody who we interviewed yesterday. So if you haven't checked it out, go back to yesterday and check out Tom's interview where he was talking about some 3 pennies. I will leave it there. Tom, I just want to say thank you right now for being a last-minute co-host. This is really what the industry looks like. It's not always pretty. Life happens. Stuff happens. We're being authentic. We're putting it out in the open. So I just want to acknowledge you showing up last minute here.
Thank you for having me. This is an incredible opportunity to be involved in something like this. I've been watching, clips, watching the days and so on and so forth. Highly, highly informative, particularly when the conversations start to take a different stream. And then there's the authentic sharing has been incredible. So looking forward to working with you and the guests today.
Awesome. So Tom, in about 60 seconds or less, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are so that we have a context of where your questions are coming from today?
Sure. My background has been sales and marketing on the corporate side. Been involved in the medical dental industry for the last 30 years, the last 15 years at a management level. And so involved with clients, involved with my sales reps, built a team of 30 reps across Canada. When we flip that over into what I'm doing now, there's a metaphysical aspect to what I used to do. And I utilize some of those skills in terms of navigating personalities, navigating clients, navigating issues. And moving into, as I said yesterday, I'm apprenticing in this genre of personal development, personal coaching, team coaching. And I hope to bring my experience of what I used to do into this area so that I can help others move forward or move into, let's call it, a more authentic path.
Awesome.
And, that's the direction I choose to go in now.
Sure. So for those who don't know, I love to talk about courageous connection. I really love speaking to those mess-to-message style entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. And you'll see how I love picking about the human being behind the business. Because to me, I don't want to use you as a tool. I don't want any business owner or entrepreneur to feel like they're being used. I want us to treat our clients as human beings, ourselves as human beings, and understand that emotions and mental health do play a huge part in that. So our first guest is ready and behind the scenes. So just double check. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to come up. Awesome. Add to stage. Hello, Doug, and welcome.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. Oh, I have so many questions about the books behind you, but I want to start with my favorite opening question as I give you a little warning to behind the scenes. I love to start with a question that shakes things up on purpose. Many times with these interviews, you get the pre-programmed elevator pitches, and then it's all about your skills. But as I said, we want to know about the human being. We want to know who Doug is first. So are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay, so the first question is this. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Fun, authentic, and creative.
That was quick. Have you been watching? Did you already know where this is?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't. I was, thinking of your question and, the things that come to mind.
So fun, authentic, and sorry, I missed the last one.
Creative.
Creative.
Yeah.
Why those words?
A quick, authentic thinker.
Yeah.
Morning, Doug. How are you?
Great, Tom. Thanks.
Good to meet you.
So why fun, authentic, and creative? Why do those words mean so much to you?
They mean a lot to me because in business, people sometimes miss out on the fun. They're so busy chasing the dollar or whatnot. And I really want to emphasize that if you can't have fun with what you're doing, just stop doing it, number one. Being authentic is a big part of our culture internally and externally as well. Because, dawn of the internet and social media and deep fakes and all this stuff, it's really hard to sometimes discern what's real and what's not. And creative, of course, my gosh, there used to be an old term, content is king, information marketing. It's all just hooey at this point because you can find anything out for free on YouTube or Google. So if you're not creative with what you're doing marketing, content wise, positioning wise, branding wise, you're going to be part of the masses. And being creative means you got to stand out with intent, stand out with purpose, and being useful.
So like a human being.
What do you know?
Oh, who would have thought? No, I love that you brought in all of those words. Can you tell us, after all of the things that you've learned, because I know that you're not just the one skill kind of guy. None of us here are. You've collected a lot over the course of your life. Mm-hmm. Is there some sort of message that ties all of those things together that you're really trying to stand for right now?
Yeah, the method is called going through life and going through boldly and remembering that almost nothing kills you. So go ahead and try stuff because you're not going to die unless you're, parachute, jumping out of a plane without a parachute. You're going to, even that was able to done one time without a parachute. But yeah, just being bold and fearless is probably a good way to go through life.
Wow. If I may, Doug, to be a little personal here because it's very relevant. I've almost died 7 times. There are about 20 honorable mentions, but I like that you bring that up because there's so many lessons when you get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because it forces you into that growth. It forces you to see things differently.
Yeah.
But I'm still here. And I know many others who still are as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I've had a couple of near-death experiences. I'm a pilot, so flying an airplane sometimes to get you in dicey situations. So there's a couple times there. And then of course, everyone's got their arcs and dips in life. And I had a pretty big one. And I almost took my own life. So it's been a wide range of experiences. And all through that, that's the biggest thing I've learned is like, just keep going. There's always changes, and sometimes they're uncomfortable or awkward or painful, but there's always a resolution or the end of it is, except death, right? That's permanent. Everything else is temporary.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You talk about, it's not going to kill you. The other day I was, there's random thoughts come in, and the quote or the scene from The Hurt Locker came in where he's going to dismantle a bomb, and he has all this gear on him, and he starts taking it off, and they say, "What are you doing?" And he says, "If I'm going to die, I'm going to die comfortable." And I cannot imagine that particular job. People talk about how hard their jobs are. So that's just an incredible job. And in the movie, he didn't die. Not to ruin it for anyone, but on that particular one, he didn't. And you're right, Doug.
Yeah,
it's not going to kill you.
Right. That's why my favorite people to work with, quite frankly, are combat vets, because they're not afraid of anything. I'm like, rejection? Who cares? I've been shot at, embarrassing myself on stage, not an issue. I've been shot at. There's a big difference between actually going through an experience versus reading about it or talking about it. So I think that's not that I'm encouraging people to, get in trouble.
Yeah.
But it certainly helps in the well-rounded nature of going through life to understand that, anything you think about or try, most likely it's not going to be the end of the world.
No. I went to Chicago in February to help out with a big event that was live and in person. Yes, there. And so it's just been so long since I left the house at this point. So I was excited to go, and I was very scared, especially for solo travel. I've only left the country twice. That was my second time. Yeah. And on the way back, I thought about it. I was bored. I was in this gift shop. I'm looking at all these stickers, and I see one that said, "But did you die?" And I was like, "Oh, God." No, I didn't. I didn't buy that sticker, but I did buy this one. She believed she could, so she did.
There you go. Right.
So then I have this big bulletin board where I stick things up like that just make me go, courage is more important. Right. What is so important that drives me through those little humps to make me do the thing that I know that I need to do?
Absolutely.
There's a thought, that talks about, the only regrets that we'll have are the things we didn't do. Right. And so if you're not taking those steps and everything's a step. So even to become a pilot, there's so many steps just to be able to do that. Right. And when you look back at, I want to do that, do you realize the work involved? Not necessarily. But then when you're involved in doing it, you accomplish something that's, rather unique within the world. You have your pilot's license. Fantastic. Yeah.
Instrument rating too. So that was fun, where you fly without being able to look outside. Being able to land our instruments was a little dicey. Not like a carrier landing, but it's pretty darn close for a general aviation pilot to not see where you're going and descend into an airport.
So what inspired you to become a pilot?
My father. He was a pilot in World War II, and he claims that if it wasn't for him, we'd always be speaking Japanese right now. He's a big joker, or was. He actually got his wings in 45. So by the time he's ready to fly, the war kind of ended.
Yeah.
So he was busy evacuating Alaska. And I got some great photos from him in Alaska in 1945. It was beautiful.
Nice. So is flying something that you do every day still?
No, it's too expensive for that. You only do it for special trips. I had a plane for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Turbocharged Mooney. It was a lot of fun. The recession took her away. So, you can rent in the meantime. So I'm rebuilding back right now to buy something else probably later this year or next year.
Nice. So what do you do now then? If you're not flying?
I own a publishing, ghostwriting, and marketing firm for CEOs and founders who want to build a personal brand.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So then why did you switch from flying a plane to branding?
Flying was a hobby. There's no money in aviation. I mean, there's an old joke in aviation that how do you make $1 million in aviation and start with 2? It's a horrible thing to make money with. I enjoy all the expensive hobbies, scuba diving and flying, both expensive hobbies, but making an income with it I looked into it. I worked at a flight school for a while. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was like, hey, I wonder if I should be a pilot. I was also investing in real estate at the same time. And I looked at the salaries for a first officer on a commuter airline. It was as much as I made like in one day flipping a house. For a whole year, you'd fly right seat in a little commuter plane just to build time up. And I looked at the career track and I was like, not for me. I love the experience of it, the challenge of it, the speed of transportation, the ease of getting around. Mm-hmm. But it's not easy to make money with it.
No. Last summer, I moved 4 times in 5 months. So I completely get the craziness of that.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So like technically I was homeless. My family was separated. I'm with my parents. My husband's still in the city. It was nuts. Yeah. At one point, I just needed away from my mom. I love my mom. So I started doing some construction work with my dad for a family member because he's flipping his house. Yeah. And I have a background in architecture. So of course, I love it. I always wanted to do construction, but I'm allergic. So I'm going with my dad and I'm working with him. And at the end of the week, I get this itty bitty paycheck. And I'm like, what is this? I worked my butt off all week. My hands don't work anymore to get this much money that I can make in an hour. It's like, I'm glad I didn't stay. I'm glad I didn't take
blessing in disguise. There you go.
So then what is it about branding? I want to focus there because we haven't talked about it much this week, or I think in very many Amplify Your Message events. Why is branding important to you?
Oh my gosh. It's more important today than it was a year ago or 10 years ago or yesterday. The advancement of AI, social media, and I was around when there was just 3 channels on television. Cable came out with 200. Now there's unlimited channels, and social medias make everybody look at this show you're doing right now. This normally would have been a TV show on broadcast TV. Here we are doing it live on social media. So everybody can have a TV studio, and that's a good thing, but it's also dilutes the power of what you thought was cool, which was to be on TV or to be in a magazine and whatnot. People popping up all these media channels pretty much for free. So what does it have to do with branding? Everything, because without a personal brand to differentiate yourself, you are going to get lost in this ocean of noise that's out there. There's no way you can SEO your way to the top unless you've got huge budgets and a bunch of time to do it. So personal branding is a way for a person to become what I call slightly famous in their industry. So our clients are mainly CEOs, founders of middle market companies doing, $10 million to $1 billion. And these are great, smart, interesting, creative, fun people, but nobody knows who they are. I mean, one of my clients has 15 patents. One of the patents about. It's a little piece of software called GPS. We've done 4. Yeah, he invented GPS. He kind of invented cloud computing too. He founded stamps.com in 1997. Just when the internet was coming out. He's like, what if we do this thing with? And I'm going to go after one partner, the U.S. Postal Service. And he invested a bunch of money in this gamble. And fortunately, and persistence-wise and creatively, it took off and Stamps went public. And then he just did a reverse thing on it where they sold the public company to a private equity firm for $6.6 billion. So stories like that always intrigue me because there's a lot of things happening that we don't see on social media or in the news for that matter. There's a lot of people doing major things in business and culture and society that I love stories. I love to amplify those stories with a personally branded book and working with Corey, getting them on stages, and making the world a little bit better.
Sorry, that's still stuck in my throat from earlier. Yeah. Oh my God, it's going to be a weird day. Oh, yes. Okay, this is our water reminder, everybody.
Water break.
Yeah, water break.
Yep. Okay, I have so many questions. The question from earlier was, I can see a lot of books behind you.
Yeah.
Are those all books that you read, or did you help people with those because of the branding?
These are books that we actually have ghostwritten, published, and marketed for our clients. Yes. We've got, like I said, athletes, physicians, CEOs, founders. Most recent one was from a gentleman named CM Prasarle, who was in Afghanistan. He advising the UN and the president there. He's kind of a big deal there. He leaves the country with his family and goes to Pakistan. He's like, you know what? I think things are going bad over there. I'm going to go back and get our money out. He flies in on August 20th, 2021. Why is that date important? Because on August 21st is when he's at the airport watching people fall out of those planes to their deaths in Afghanistan. His story, the amount of trauma he went through, being separated from his family, watching people get machine gunned, losing everything he earned. It's like Argo times 10. It's an amazing story. So it wasn't really a business story. We don't normally do books like that, but it was so captivating. He's such a charismatic man. We had to publish his book.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I do like that you focus on the business. For those who don't understand the word branding, because there are so many misconceptions, can you just give us a basic definition from your perspective? Yeah.
My definition is a little bit unique, I think. It's what people perceive about you, whether they're a customer or not. Mm-hmm. McDonald's has a brand. I haven't eaten there in 20 years, but I'm familiar with Golden Arches and those fries. Nike is a brand. When people talk about branding when they're just starting out, no disrespect, but I kind of laugh, right? Because nobody knows who you are. You're 7 billion people. How many people know you? 100, maybe? That's not really a brand. That's kind of a microcosm of a relationship, really. So branding happens, in my opinion, when people know about you, but they're not necessarily your customer.
Oh, I like that part, though.
Quick question on that, Doug. Yeah. When you see people branding or they're starting to emerge and they're starting to be known, what are the 3 little things that you would shift in their brand to help them out?
The biggest one is to, oh my God, I'm going to get in trouble here.
That's okay. We're talking about rebellious actions, calling things out.
The caveat on this is I was guilty of what I'm about to say. Okay. So I'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
People are buying notoriety and it makes me want to vomit in my mouth every time I see it. There I am in front of a jet. There I am on Fox News. There I am, Amazon bestseller. There I am. They're talking about themselves till people are. How many times can you talk about yourself until your audience is sick of you? You got about a week. And then they're like, okay, I've seen your book launch, or I am done. So having other people talk about you is important. But when you talk about yourself so much or talk about what great things you've done, nobody cares. What have you done for them? And that's why our clients, I just love our clients so much because they're these quiet warriors and captains of industry that nobody knows about because they haven't focused on, being on podcasts every day or being in the media. They focus on doing something, creating value in the world. And then our job is to help, okay, how can we create them a personal brand in their ecosystem, not in the world, because you can't market to everybody. No. But if you're, a concrete manufacturer, then when you go to the concrete association meetings, you should be a keynote speaker there and you'll be the guy in your industry. And that's, to me, the personal brand for someone like that makes a lot more sense than all these people trying to say how cool they are with their coaching and their business. When, until you're doing multi-million dollars, you should just focus on servicing your customers. That's your brand. Your brand can be told from the work that you do, not from where you're seeing. Now, I'm guilty of this because we did Amazon bestsellers for like 10 years.
Of
I was
course.
promoting that, right?
Yeah.
And after a while, I'm like, well, technically, you're only a bestseller for like, a day or a week. Then you're not anymore. So what was it worth? What does it really mean? It means something because, I guess people go to that because it validates their message. Like, I'm a bestseller. That means somebody else other than my mother, my brother, and my best friend bought my book.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. What about the next week, the next month? Because most books don't last that long. Think and Grow Rich lasts probably 100 years. All of our books, maybe a few months, a few years if you're lucky, depending on the marketing you do behind it and your focus on where it goes. So branding is important, but only if you've done something more important, which is deliver a lot of value to your client base. If you do that, your brand is kind of natural.
I do like that you brought that part up about the Amazon bestsellers because, there are people who see that as like even on the other side. I went for it too, of course.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was told that I would never be a writer. So to have that happen for me, it was like mind blown. And then last week, Corey was saying that the first Blue Talks book has actually been on the charts for 4 years.
Nice.
I was like, okay, that feels like more validation than we hit it for like just a moment, just a minute.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. But I love that.
And
So
the other challenge with authors that we find, I was talking to a lady yesterday who's got a really good experience. She's 70. She's done a lot in her life. Relaunching her book, Trainwreck to Triumph. We talk about, okay, so we market the book. Then what happens? Wow, what's your goal? What do you want to have happen? When that person closes that book up, what do you want them to do? And I hear this every day. I want them to be inspired. Okay. How do you know? How do you know if they're inspired, if they're reading a book in Arkansas and you're in New York? How do you know? Well, Amazon is not going to tell you. They don't even give you the data on it.
Nope. So
unless you've got an ecosystem feedback loop with your content, book or otherwise, you're really just, I can't say a thing about it. Can I say pissing in the wind? I mean, you're just putting stuff out there and you're getting no feedback on it.
Yeah.
So we're very intentional about creating communication, not just monologues with our books. We want to have a dialogue going on with it.
Let's explore that then. Communication, you use that word. What does that mean to you? And like, how do we have an understanding of not necessarily check boxes of, I did that, but the feeling of being communicated and having that communication?
It goes back to being a really good listener and being open to criticism and feedback. I could go down a rabbit hole here. If you want to piss off some more people, I'll do that right now.
Go ahead.
How big is this coaching and course industry? We take courses and coaching. It's massive, right?
Huge, yeah.
Do you know why it's so popular?
Because people are telling other people it's popular. Because
there's no accountability to any output, and it's easy to do.
Yeah.
You didn't go through the modules. Of course, you're not going to win. Disclaimer. Results not typical. People who do this. I mean, I'm an agency, right? I tried the coursework, and I know the numbers on this. It's not 80-20. It's like 90-10. 90% of people don't do anything with it, and everybody knows it. So it's easy to fulfill. Hey, here's my course. Let me market the crap out of it. Maybe 10% of people go through it. Those are the ones I got a service. The rest of them are they drop off, but they paid me.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with this. I really do. So if you're gonna communicate, whether through a course or a coach or a consultant or an agency, I don't really care what it is, but get feedback, do focus groups, have your dialogues with your people, especially those that didn't buy or rejected it or refunded or, gave you a bad review. Don't be afraid. Hey, listen, I appreciate the review. What can we have done differently? If you can't make the call, have someone else do it for you. You'll learn a lot more from those conversations than all the glowing testimonials from your friends and relatives.
Yep. I remember last time I was trying to figure out the next transition of my business, yay COVID. Yeah. I did probably 3 months straight of just interviews with people. Mm-hmm. Can I interview you? Can I, share the things that I'm thinking about? Can I get your feedback on what you actually need and what you actually value and what you think the issues are? And then we can talk about it together so that I could really kind of dance around and dig in and go, oh, this is what they said, but this is actually what they need.
Right.
And then be able to speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh.
So anyway, so I'm not disparaging an actual coach, only the ones that don't care about the people that give them money. So make sure you have dialogue, communication, ask, set up systems to actually communicate with them, not just sell your stuff and move on.
Mm-hmm.
My point there.
It's interesting when you make that point about people not taking the information and then applying it. So of all the the books or the ideas that you've worked on and with people, what ideas come to top of mind that you've taken and you've applied them in your own life?
Wow. Whew, so many. The first that comes to mind is we've done a bunch of, we work with a bunch of people in the mergers and acquisition space, people buying and selling companies like you and I go to Amazon. And after doing several books in this space, I mean, it was heady work. We're really trying to, my wife and I, she leads a company and I've got a team of 8 people, but we feel like we got our MBA doing these books. We learn so much by interviewing these captains of industry that we feel like I haven't sold a company yet, but I'm more equipped for it now based on writing these books for people. I know what to do, what to look for. I know who to bring in as my advisors too. I got a great community with that. So learning about other areas of the world have been one of my greatest joys of ghostwriting and publishing books for people. Other than that, the other thing I learned, and I repeated to myself just this morning, was when I'm looking at manuscripts that our ghostwriters write and the clients critique, and we have a whole process to get that done. When it comes to, okay, we're done now, sent to proofing, I want to take a quick look at it, see if I see anything that was missed. And I'm looking at a manuscript this morning and I'm like, gosh, these little run-on sentences here, it kind of reads funky. And I noticed it was a trend throughout the book. So I'm like, is this what you want? It feels kind of, I didn't like it personally. And talking with the client and his audience, whatnot, oh no, that reads perfect. And what I've learned from that is that there's not just one style of writing. Yep. We don't talk the way we write. We don't read the way we hear. And so I try to make it more readable, even if that's the way you speak. I want to make you sound better than you already are. But oftentimes I find myself making it so much better, it actually doesn't sound like the author anymore. So I have to dial myself back and trust our editor-in-chief to work with the client, make sure, no, this is a style, they like it, they've tested it. I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm learning to not impose my style on my authors.
I remember when I first wrote, I mentioned that I had a high school English teacher write in red pen at the top of one of my projects, "You'll never be a writer." So then the first time, I know, right? Teachers have so much influence. That empowerment is meaningful. So the
Somebody
first
said that to one of my daughter's friends, and I just about called the school up. So you are destroying dreams with your little one-liner.
Yep.
It's horrible. Yeah, it's a horrible thing.
Yeah. So then the first time I wrote for Blue Talks, which was the first official time it was published anywhere.
Yep.
I felt so nervous that the editor was going to completely change my voice because it was my personal story.
Yeah.
And I was like, how is it going to turn out? The only feedback I got was we did some editing, but mostly you put in way too many commas because I was trying to write the way that I spoke. And I've been on the stage since I was 4, so there's a lot of pauses. And so I comma.
Nice.
But it's good to know.
Yeah.
Let's shift just a little bit. This show's about amplifying your message. You did talk about writing a little, and you're obviously here on a podcast.
Yeah.
What are the different ways that you love to share your message?
Oh my gosh. There's a book that I bought years ago. It's called 1,001 Ways to Market Your Book.
Oh, fun.
I've never finished this book. That's 1,001 ways, right? Makes no sense.
Yeah.
So I find that you always want to, they say, where's the best place to put a Burger King? The answer is next to a McDonald's. And the same is true for marketing. I don't need 1,000 ways to market my book. I just need to know where my audience is and be there.
Yeah.
So a lot of people focus on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm a LinkedIn guy because I that's where my clients are. The C-suite crowd hangs out there. But more importantly, the what we've been doing this past year really is leaning into meeting people in person. As AI takes charge, right? It's like every single stream out there, I'm like, okay, well, I'll use it for like, maybe titles and maybe some frameworks, but I'm not gonna have it write a story. It sucks at writing stories. There's no heart, soul, experience with a robot.
The
it can't really
humanness.
evoke emotion, right? It can put words together, no problem.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot more meeting people in person, and that's expensive nowadays, right? Normally you go on Zoom like we're doing now or in StreamYard, but putting together an event like we just did, or meeting people in person, flying to another state to meet a client, it's unexpected and it's highly valuable. In our case, we've got extremely high ticket services, so it makes sense. One referral can buy a sports car. So it's important to, we don't mind using technology. Of course, I love it, but we're leaning away from it on purpose for the idea of creating real relationships and value with human beings. So we'll use AI like a calculator. I'm not going to use it as my front man.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, especially when you're in the high ticket sales, to just highlight the piece that human first, please, human first in your marketing. I think it was yesterday we were talking about the difference between manipulation and persuasion. Because persuasion can kind of easily blend onto that manipulation side. And the question is, how do you find that balance? So I'm going to ask you, since you're in communication and deal with branding, how do you find that balance between a loving style of persuasion versus a manipulation style of persuasion?
Oh, that's so easy, especially nowadays. People, and my clients are pretty sophisticated. And I'll give you an example. We go to, have you been to like events where they pitch on the stage and be excited, bring your credit cards back to the room?
Yep.
And people make millions of dollars doing that. And they are manipulating those people, giving them the sense of false urgency, fear of missing out, all these little tactics to hit our limbic brain to do something.
Yeah.
And, we've got, our average sale is, $25,000 to $50,000. So run to the back of the room and give me a second mortgage to your house isn't going to work. So we only do loving servant leadership marketing. We don't do any manipulation whatsoever. Matter of fact, we run away from it so hard, it probably costs us some cash flow because we could squeeze a little bit thing here and pull some revenue out, but it goes against our values. Yeah. So I prefer just to grow steadily and authentically versus trying to push things with tactics. So, and the way we do this is, loving is a good term. What we do is put people in future state of what it'll be like to be a best-selling author, to be in that stage. And the way we do that is pretty unique in our industry. To my knowledge, nobody does this. But you've heard the term irresistible offer, right? So most people have to spend inordinate amount of time and resource to convince you to invest with them. Here's my social proof. Here's my guarantee. Blah 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 blah. They got to convince you with the words and pictures and stories that you can trust them. And I'm looking at this. I've done that for years myself. And a couple of years ago, I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't we just do the work? So yeah, let's go ahead and design. I have an internal design team. Let's design 10 different book covers. Let's interview them for an hour. Let's write their table of contents and a sample introduction for their book, and don't charge them a dime.
Yep.
And what happens with that, we spent 2 weeks. Our entire team works on one client for 2 weeks, no charge. They come back with this amazing starting point of like, wow, here's my, and by the way, we also generally build for them a 100,000 person database to go with it, potential readers. So we build all these assets for them with their name of the book, on the cover, their bio. It's very personal, but it's putting them in the future state of being already published. So I don't need to convince them that I'm wonderful. I don't need to have social proof. I don't need to have a bunch of guarantees. Like, here's what I'm proving it by doing it.
Yep.
And by not charging it, I'm so confident in our ability that it's not a bad investment of our time, because most people are going to go ahead and proceed to work with us after they see something in assets being created.
Yeah. It's not that people they don't necessarily not have the knowledge. They can find the knowledge anywhere. The internet, AI, like there's so many tools to help you get the knowledge.
Yeah.
What's missing is that next step of how do I take action? We know what to do now. We're just not doing it. So then our job, as to highlight what you're saying, is to bring down that level of doubt, to make that mountain into a molehill for them. Not trust me. And we all know the person who says, trust me.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know. Are they trustworthy?
But the trust is built immediately when you present them with that future version of themselves or that future product. As you said, you don't have to look for social proof.
No.
Your brand is in that final product that you put in their hands.
That's right.
They can see it, feel it, touch it, and then in their mind they can project into the future and say, you know, I have my best seller here.
And even if they reject it, which I've had a couple say, not right now, it's never about the work. It's about them. Yeah. And so what are they thinking about as they walk away from that? Man, that was a really cool cover. I can't do it right now. Maybe someday. You know, they might never do it, but there's no bad vibe. There's no like, oh, he tried to pitch me or he tried to squeeze me or close me. No, I just showed you what it'll be like to have this book done and this personal brand built.
How many call you back after a week or so when they've said no and say yes?
Well, I'm still here. I've had a few. I had one corporation, of course, because they have all this RFP nonsense to go through. It took 6 months for them to pull the trigger. I had one guy who's pretty funny. He's pretty successful insurance guy. He had like a 8-figure agency doing quite well. Had a good book idea. We talked about it. I did a action plan for him. It's oh, this is great. I'm really like it. I can definitely afford it. It wasn't a problem for him. I just gotta have some things I gotta do right now, so I'm gonna wait like 6 months. I said, that's fine. During those 6 months, we could do some groundwork for you, start building your database and do some testing and stuff for you. He goes, oh, no, we'll just talk in 6 months. I said, you can do that, but I'm going to tell you the truth. What's that, Doug? Well, you're not going to call me. What do you mean? He said, well, I've been doing this for 14 years. You know how many people told me they're going to talk to me in 6 months? Like over 100. And I check Amazon once in a while to see, type in a name or two, and like, no, they're not there. And you're not going to do it because people always say later and it means never. Oh, I'm different, Doug. He said, I'm different than that. This is what I said. I said, oh yeah, they say that too. Everybody thinks they're different. But when the idea comes, you've heard Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. If you don't take some action within 5 seconds, it goes to the maybe later category. Doesn't mean you got to do the book, but take some action to either I'm going to do something or not. When you sit in limbo and purgatory like that, you're frustrating yourself and the universe. So take some action, whether it's a hard no, I'm going to do it in 3 months, here's my deposit, or get going. But to say maybe later, it's just weak. Sorry.
No, you're right. It's weak. It's weak within yourself because even when you say, maybe, you're not congruent. But if someone gives you a hard no, you actually feel it and go, okay, that's perfect. A no.
And you know what? I had a couple of those last year, and I still talk to him.
Oh, yeah.
One of them came to my event, and I think he's going to work with us in a few months because these are guys with 8, 9, 10-figure businesses. They don't always do things quickly. It might take them time to do something. So I'm patient, but I accept it as hard no. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's stay in touch and come to this event. You've done some mergers and acquisitions yourself. I'd love to have you there. And he's a former advanced agent for the Secret Service and stuff. Really cool story. So yeah, we'll work with him eventually.
The story I like to share with that is that there are so many people that are hiding. We mentioned they want to take action. They know what to do, but they're hiding. And our job really is to highlight the fact that they're hiding. It's like playing hide and go seek. And I joke, I have this little prop with me. You need to call out that they're wearing purple fuzzy Care Bear sticky toe socks, right? It's so clear and concise about who they are and where they are that they only have 2 choices now. They've been seen. There's no way 20 people have the same socks, okay?
Nice.
They've been seen. So then they have 2 choices. They can come and play with you. That's my language that I like. I'm going to be here. Here's how I'm playing. Here's where I'm playing and when I'm playing. You can come to me anytime you want. Or they can choose to continue to hide. But we're not calling out the human being. We're calling out the behaviors, or we're calling out the goals and dreams that they have.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they feel, again, like a human being and that they're supported at the same time. so they can make that empowered choice versus you
Right.
persuading them or manipulating them into something that they don't want or need.
Yeah. Yeah. If they have enough information, obviously, if they need more information, I'll give it to them, you know?
Exactly.
But generally, you know, I mean, there's not many people that don't realize the power of being a published author. I mean, when I take a look at every other media channel on the planet, this interview, advertising, blogs, live streams, events, everything is temporary except a book. A book is the only media that is permanent. You know why? Because we toss business cards and brochures in the garbage.
Yep.
None of us can remember what
Books.
post we liked or commented on yesterday, right? But we never put a book in the garbage can. It feels like we're burning them, right? We can't do that.
Yeah, no.
A book is permanent. It'll outlast our own lives. So that's why I love, even as technology advances and things change, you know, Captain of Star Trek still had a book in his hand. You know, he still read those things. So I think
Are you a fellow entrepreneur?
Pardon me?
I said, are you a fellow entrepreneur?
Of course.
Of course. I was like,
I watched The Universe thing of Morgan Freeman this past week. It was amazing special effects on that Netflix thing. The Universe was good. Yeah.
I think I did watch that.
Yeah. I was raised in the 60s. Apollo, everybody wanted to be an astronaut. It was a real exciting time. So I love that. Yeah.
So we have a few minutes left. I want to make sure that we start with where we can find you, and then we'll fill in the rest. So what is your favorite way of communicating, just so that we know where you spend your time?
Favorite way is in person. So come to Charleston. We'll have a barbecue here and hang out. You know,
that's why you know Leah. Okay.
Second way is, email works great. You can contact me at doug@dougcrowe.com. It's spelled just like my cousin Russell Crowe. So it's doug@dougcrowe.com. Shoot me a message.
Are you actually related?
And put Blue Talks in the subject line so I know what it is. I check my spam filters. The website is authorbrand.com. And for you guys, I offer a kind of a special thing. We'll actually do an assessment on your book idea with a research on the potential reader database and viability in the marketplace, all at no charge. So we just shoot me a message and say, I want to validate my idea. Because a lot of times people will come up with a book idea and they either think it's great or they're not sure. In either case, it could be wrong. Yes. So we've got a really in-depth vet and validate process where we vet and validate the cover concept and the theme with a cold audience to see if it's actually viable or not. So we can do that for almost anybody, really.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I want to make sure that I end with this. I like having some space to make sure that you've said the things that you wanted to get off your chest, to make sure that you share your message. So if there was something that you needed people to take away from our conversation today, what might that be?
Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story, and most of them are really cool. And your story matters. I remember hearing Glenn Morshower speak once about the probability of your existence. You know, there's 6 billion sperm in your dad and 1 egg in your mom, and you won the lottery. You actually won a lottery, right? 1 out of 6 million chance you're on this planet, and you made it. So you have value just by being born. And that story you went through, whether it's interesting, compelling, dramatic, traumatic, even boring, your story matters to somebody because somebody else is going to benefit from your story, provided it's packaged and positioned in a way that serves humanity. So our mission statement is we only do personal branded projects and books for people that are going to make a difference. Doesn't mean they have to be Mother Teresa. It just means they have to have a book that's going to have value to the reader. We don't do pure entertainment. I don't do fiction books. I had one nonfiction author talk to me for an hour about his life story. And it was an amazing story. You know, youngest spy ever to be recruited by Castro, double agent for CIA. He went on and on for an hour. I was captivated. Checking him out on Wikipedia. I'm like, this is real. But when I asked him the question, so how does a reader benefit from your book? He stuttered. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So I said, well, you know, I have a referral for you then because I can't work with you. I passed up a 6-figure book project, personal brand project, because it didn't align with our values, which is telling stories that make a difference, to make the world a better place. So if you're going to tell a story, make sure you've got some intent to serve others. And if that's the case, you can drop me a line, doug@dougcrowe.com.
Aw, well, thank you so much, Doug, for being here and spending this time with us and being willing to play with my my questions.
You bet.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Doug, thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye, Tom.
Bye-bye.
And we have our next guest in the background, which I'm excited. I haven't talked to him in a little while, and I wanted to catch up, so this is our time to publicly catch up. Are you ready, Mitch? Okay. Welcome, Mitch, Mr. Savage in Business.
Laura, Tom. Laura, it's
Mitch.
always great to see you.
I know, it's always a delight. I think you're familiar with the way that I present. Okay, are you ready for the shakeup?
Let's do her.
Yeah. So, Mitch, today, since I know I've interviewed you at least once and I know I've asked you this question, so today, if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
They're on the bottom of the screen right there.
Savage.
They're in the title. They're on the bottom of the screen right there. That's it. That's all there is to it. I live, eat, breathe, sleep, roll around in, and wear. That's it. That's what it is, right? In a world where people want unique labels and identifiers, that's it. That's mine, right to a T.
So now I want to know if you have a dress shirt where you've just got it embroidered on the chest.
Funny you ask that. I've how do I put this? I'll put it in fancy language. I've eschewed dress clothes almost entirely. Once upon a time, I used to have a lot of fancy stuff. I've got rid of damn near everything now. I'm a t-shirt with a sport jacket kind of guy.
Nice.
Now damn near everywhere I go to. So that's about it. So once upon a time, monogrammed or embroidered, yes. Yeah. No, that's not it. I'll wear a t-shirt with a pair of nice pants and a jacket. But that's kind of the line I draw.
Oh, I love it.
Mitch, we just came out of a session on branding, and to have your brand right in the title is fantastic. Can you talk about the early days and how it started, and then how it's gotten to where it is today?
Yeah, absolutely. What's intriguing is that the idea for Savage in Business literally started when I started as a business coach, and I've been a coach for 10 years. I ended up merging companies with somebody else, and we were partners for just over 2 years, and we learned an awful lot and developed it. But that idea was always percolating there. In fact, the language Savage in Business was there the entire time. And as soon as we parted company, it didn't take longer than 90 days for me to have my first t-shirt. Well, my first client, solo, standalone, the first t-shirt. And the idea is always, so how to answer this for you, Tom, that's useful and at the same time a bit of a plug. I've got a separate podcast called Savage in Business, the podcast. We're shooting season 2 right now. It's lots of fun. I bring in people that are absolute killers in some facet or whatever, have got some success in life and tell stories, right? Yeah. So when we started down that path, every one of my guests, the very last question I ask is, Savage in Business, what does that mean to you, and what does it mean for your business? And it's intriguing to hear people how they interpret those words and not make it fit, so to speak, like they're somehow manipulating it just to be acceptable. How that really puts them into a very specific mind frame. They're very clear-headed when they talk about it. They take a moment and articulate incredibly well, and all of it centers down to, if I had to go through what has to be about 20 or 25 guests now through 2 seasons, right? Almost every one of them talks about a sense of perseverance, of not compromising, of never surrendering, never quitting, a number of these different things. For me, internally, Savage in Business is a mindset where business is war. Business is a conflict. It's a constant struggle. You will be forgotten about by most of your customers within 30 days if they leave or something happens to you. Your employees and vendors and partners might remember you longer than that. Your employees certainly, because they'll lack for resources and their own sense of security and their security blanket in the world. Their gainful employment and your ability to be able to pay them will dissipate. So business is a wicked savage land. It is an unbelievable gong show that is unapologetic. You can do that as a cultured and conscientious warrior, but make no mistake, business is war. And so you turn your hands to war the right way in business. You can do it well. You can treat people well, but business is uncompromising. And so savage business is about being uncompromising and unrelenting in pursuit.
It sounds like a lot of our messages where I ask people, I was like, what is that message that you can't help but share? Like, no matter what happens and all the chaos around you, you're finding that perseverance and really resilience to keep trying to share it because it's just that important. So
Yeah.
then, like, can you make your business and your message and your offers around that so that it naturally drives you forward in business?
Well, it is, and I caught a little bit of the back end of Brother Crowe's message, right? And PR, branding, and marketing are essential for every business these days, but little businesses, they're critical. Think about the impact if your business is just a local one for a moment on not understanding what your story or what your impact is for your customers, or what you're really relevant or stand for. There are 10,000 self-styled business coaches out there.
Yep.
There's no savage in business, right? Every coach under the planet will tell you that they're a business coach if they're forced to tell you what else it is they do, but maybe they have a tiny little portfolio. Very few work on all of it. My job is to help people with business. It's to fix all the broken things and stuff, to take away all the pains and the ouchies that happen when that happens. There's very, very few people that do it like this. And that story and that narrative, that brand identifier, is so important because people need to equate things right away. Thanks to the advent of COVID, for instance, one of the brand identifiers I've had the entire time since my entire business is digital now is the beard. The beard's been here for years, but my studio lighting is even set up in such a way that it shows up quite a bit more striking. You get the dark marks with the white and the white, right? You get the little dark mark in the middle. That's been there the entire time. You know, I'm aging gracefully, I think. But even that alone, along with savage business, the identifiers, people pick up on that very, very quickly, and they remember months or years later. So if I was just to transact for a moment in my local or regional market, and I did that from a digital site and presence, the number of people in my backyard where I live that are like, I know you from somewhere, is staggeringly high. And yet maybe I've never engaged with them. I've never touched their business or their place of work, etc. So these things are really important to be able to lean into, and having language like, and again, by the way, savage business, it's also my trademark. I don't know if you can see it. There's the tiny little letters up in the corner up there too.
Yeah.
I hold my own brand identifiers as well. Protect your stuff, kids. Whatever you do, when you come up with it, protect it, right? So even that alone is part of the care and attention goes into savage business. Don't compromise, don't miss on details, but building your brand and your identifier and having something that creates the persona or identity, or very quickly anchors everybody down to what it is you truly represent, is essential. The number of call it holistic or life coaches wandering around right now that are doing energy and aura readings is staggeringly high. Very few of them have a well-identified brand that is constructive or helpful for the population at large. It tells a story. The same thing happens with an accountant. I'm just an accountant, or I'm just a bookkeeper. All right. I am the electrician of bookkeepers. What the hell does that language even mean? I don't know, but it's at least a better story to tell than I'm just a bookkeeper, or I'm the preferred bookkeeper of choice for electricians everywhere. Okay, that's starting to tell a story, right? There's an identifier, a series of language points that we can use to flow traffic and convey to other people what we're doing. So savage business is a way very quickly to kind of hit people over the head and tell them what to expect, tell them what they should know or understand or surmise or guess at. But those three little words make it very simple to get. Okay, the guy's probably going to talk about business, and it's probably going to be a little loud. He's going to have one would expect a little bit of force to his personality, and of course it doesn't help having the Viking-like beard, and I mean the axe is right there as well. So every so often you got to brandish the weapons too, because it's part of the persona, if you will.
Laura, some people have a 2x4. Mitch has an axe.
Mitch has an axe.
Funny you mentioned 2x4s, Tom. I've got one kicking around here. There it is. It's down here, but it's behind a box. I've got a 2x4 that came from a good buddy of mine years ago, and he was a sales trainer with Sandler. And this 2x4 is just a normal hunk of 2x4, probably about 28 or 30 inches in length. And there's a leather tag pinned to it with this ornate antique furniture pin that says Sales Team Persuader on it. So I've got a 2x4 that says Sales Team Persuader. So yes, 2x4s are useful tools too.
Oh my God, I love that.
Absolutely.
A couple times ago when we had a conversation, it was shortly, probably 6 months or so, maybe a year or so after I've adopted the title of Courageous Connection, just like your Savage in Business. I was like, what do I stand for? That we were talking about branding. You're talking about what are those pillars of your business? What do you stand for? What is your branding? How do you communicate with people? You and I had a chat, and you showed me your 4 pillars in your business.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I went home, and I know I showed you this before.
Yes, you did.
As I'm going to take my table down, I put 4 pillars of my business. And then because of that, oh, my back is sore, so I'm going to sit. Because of that, I actually went to GPT or Chat GPT. And I was like, okay, here. And I had this big paragraph of describing my business. I was like, here's what I do. Here's who I help. Here's the type of offers I have. Can you rephrase that in 1 sentence? And then it gave me a sentence. And then I'm like, okay, can you rephrase that in 5 words? And it gave me 5 words. And I'm like, can you rephrase that in 3 words, in 2 words? It basically gave me the exact same thing as Courageous Connection. And I was like, oh, validation.
I'm so proud of you. Great work, Laura.
Thank you. I figured
Great
that
work.
second part would be meaningful to you. Just to be like, yes, we worked on it. We talked about it. This really is. And it feels so good for the first time in years. Like, I don't have to think about where's my branding going next? What do I want to talk about today? No. Pull up the 4 pillars that Mitch was talking about.
That's it.
Find out what's meaningful. What are the tools you use in each section? What messages do you have and belief systems around that? There you go. There's everything you need.
Now let's come back, for a moment to the words that are here on the screen, but to yours. And Tom, I notice you're writing notes, brother. So thank you so much for flattering me by going, hey, I think that was thoughtful, or at least something to challenge this guy on later. But Laura, let's come back to that one for a moment. I think it's constructive for the audience. The more it tells you how tired my brain is in the week. I'm adding these filler words instead. At least the ums and ahs haven't cropped out yet. When we go to the trouble of constructing what we do in as simplistic a fashion as possible, it allows you to replicate that process faster. Our job, so back to the 3 words at the bottom of the screen next to my name for a moment.
Yeah.
Our job is to build as replicable a system as possible, as quickly as possible. Like, I've got 3 other words that I've used for 10 years now to tell people how I essentially work. And by I mean, I've got a whole team. I got 9 people working with me, right? Mm-hmm. And that is simple, elegant, and repeatable, which means that when you make things, there has to be very few moving parts and very few steps. It's a must. As human beings, we have this driver, and we think of it as becoming more sophisticated, and yet it creates more complexity. Yeah. The cleverer I am, and the more this system caters to my own sense of ego for a moment, clearly can't you tell how clever I am because of it. But then when Tom and Laura come to work with me, and they go, this is ridiculously hard. Like, this is tough to navigate. There's a lot of steps and mechanics. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of muscle memory I have to have developed. It makes it tough to be able to make that work for you, audience-wise. So the simpler you get, like taking, for instance, your framework for working with the clients and breaking it down just 4 things, right? So if we take simple for a moment, the way I work with clients is there are 4 cornerstones or 4 pillars in business. There's money and time and architecture and leadership, right? Money is a product of money in and out. Time is the way time works in and on and for our business. The architecture is the things and stuff that make up our business itself. Financial structure, hiring, sales, marketing, the technical training for people. And then that strategic element is our plan, direct, measure, and grow. Where are we at? Where are we going to? So there's 4 cornerstones that go in there. There's 3 measurables that work with that. That's profit, people, and process. And when you line it up visually, you get money and time at the top and you get architecture and leadership at the bottom. So the time is your profit center. Your money and time has to make sense. You either have enough or you don't have enough of it. The bottom half, the architecture and leadership, is your people and your process. The people and the things and stuff you do. Our internal language as well has people process tool, PPT. Who does it? How do they do it? What's the stuff they need to do it? The faster you make this understandable in that way, the quicker it becomes replicable. So we have simple first. There's 4 parts to a business. There's 3 things to measure. There's 3 functions for everybody: people, process, profit, right? And then there's 2 things that senior leaders and managers have to have: proximity and mentorship. They have to have other people around them that they can talk at a peer level. And they have to have people that can teach them how to do things they don't know how to do. They have to wipe their ego out in favor of doing that. So when you take it and construct it like that, now I can give that to other coaches. I can give it to other people, and they can use that as well. Now we've got simple. So elegant. What do we mean by elegant? It means it works all the time. Now, if we take technology as a great bridge for a moment for elegant construction, I mean, most smartphones these days, most tablet phones work very similar with, a little bit of variegated differences, whether it's Samsung or LG or Nokia or iPhone, doesn't matter what it is. But when iPhone hit the market in 2007, there were a couple of phones that had certain elements, but nothing had a full screen. Nothing worked as well because Apple had constructed it the same way they had built computers, for instance. Now, there are many computers that work very well, and there's many smartphones or tablets that work just as well as Apple products did. But when it came on the market, that's what elegant meant. Is that it was aesthetically pleasing. Its functionality was incredibly high. It just worked all the time. And if it didn't work, what did you do? Literally the common phrase in IT these days, turn it off and turn it on. Well, that literally hardly works for most Microsoft systems these days, depending on the technology. But for every Mac product, that is your biggest troubleshooting too. Hey, my phone's acting up. Hard reset it. Turn it off, turn it back on. You're like, gremlin's gone.
I say the same thing
with
about human beings.
Well, exactly. If you can reset their nervous system. So elegant means it works and works well all the time. Repeatable means that you can pick it up and clone it. You can replicate it. I can take what I do business-wise, and in the short time right now that I just talked to you, you guys get the framework on business a little bit. If I show you how I score businesses using the same tool, in 5 minutes, you go, shit, I can score my own business. If I spend the next 60 minutes showing you how that relates to the biggest 5 issues business owners deal with, now all of a sudden you go, fuck, I can figure this out myself. And yes, I said a bad word, right? And then after we do that, I can go off and explain the same thing to somebody else. I can sit down and go, hold on a second. Let me ask you some questions. Yeah, I'm not an expert, but I just saw this and it's killer. In fact, one of my favorite stories about the simplicity, the elegance, and repeatability on the 4 block is one of my senior coaches, Paul. Paul's been with me 3 years now. All of my coaches and staff, for one, have been former clients. Nice. So they've all been through the ringer, if you will.
Yep.
And now they're on the coaching team. Paul's is famous. Paul was one of the people in the room at one of the very first solo events I ran after my business partnership dissolved. So this is about 8 years ago. And Paul was in a room at a time management seminar that I ran in a blizzard on a Tuesday night right after New Year's. New Year's hit. It was a blizzard. Everybody's like, you're nuts to hold an event on a weeknight right after New Year's. Nobody's going to show up. I had 80 people in the room. It was awesome. And he was one of the guys in the room. And so we talked back and forth a little bit for about 2 months and finally agreed to go for a cup of coffee. I said, listen, let's talk a little bit of business. We're going to be fine. And as I'm driving over there, he calls me on my cell phone and says, Mitch, don't try and sell me any of your crap, right? I'm paraphrasing for the PG audience. Don't try to sell me anything. We're just going to have a good audience. That's it. And so we sit down for about 10 minutes. We're just chatting. He goes, okay, so show me what you do just so I got an idea. And I take a piece of paper. So this is where we talk about simple, elegant, repeatable. I draw what is the 4 block matrix on a piece of paper. And I put a $sign and a little clock and a little A for architecture, a little L for leadership. And I write a couple of things down and I say, here's the 4 parts. Here's they go together. Here's the 19 things that go into every business that we can score. Here's the 3 things you measure, here's the 2 things you're going to need, and here's how this works. And we get 7 minutes in. And so, please beep this out after, because for posterity, I have to add the bad word in. He looks at me across a cup of coffee in a crowded Starbucks and goes, "Fuck you." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "I'm in." He goes, "I'm in. I get it. I'm sold." He goes, "I hate you. I came and I told you I didn't want to be sold. You didn't sell me. I asked you what you did. I took one look and I said, I have to use this." Mm-hmm. So when we talk about the things and stuff that make it up, like the 3 words at the bottom, right? The simplicity of things, the elegance, the way they function all the time, and the repeatability, the ability to pick it up and move it, is what we have to have. Well, that works in life too, right? We can't have things sacrosanct to the point where, I'm going to put my feet in it for a moment here, but let's take the average domestic situation at home, setting aside the number of divided household and divorced couples and single parenthood, etc. There's this massive debate going on right now about traditional values compared to contemporary values, etc. Women being homemakers, men working, doesn't matter what it is. Well, the problem we get off of both of those is that you see men that talk about the sacredist sanctity and difficultness of their jobs every day, and yet they would be replaced tomorrow if they dropped dead today. HR would sort that out in a hurry. And the number of, we'll just say, moms at home going, "I asked him to help me clean up, but he didn't clean the way I wanted to, and so I've got to go back and redo it." Do you? Do you really? Or did you not establish expectations enough? Why do I bring that up? Not to put a divide between, traditional and contemporary culture ideas or norms on how husbands and wives should transact when it comes to household and work and labor and all these other things. Just the fact that we as human beings go back to that concept I used at the beginning, which is we build our own sense of sophistication, which is really overcomplication. The house doesn't get cleaned the way I expect, so I've got to go back and do it again. That's your own ego talking. Shut the fuck up. If somebody else goes and cleans the toilet for you, things are okay. It might not be the way you cleaned it, but it's clean and you didn't have to, right?
Yeah.
So, but if I want it done a certain way, then I need to supplement and you go say, "Listen, I'd really love your help, but I'm very particular. Please forgive me for putting it like that. If you want to keep peace between yourself and your life partner or spouse or whatever, whatever title or label you want to put on that, great." Well, the same thing in business. You can be very polite. "Mr. Tom, Miss Laura, I'm going to show you how we work. So will you please follow along, ask questions, and this is the way I'd like you to do it." Or in my case, it'd be like, "Listen up. This is the way we work. This is how we do the thing. This is the way I need you to do it. And if you screw this up..."
Yes. I was hoping you'd show us the X.
So it really depends on the nature of the way you want to communicate. But everything I've set up until now all predicates on simple, elegant, repeatable. The fewer steps and the fewer mechanics you put in place, the more likely success happens faster in everything. But I talk about business. Elegance, you want things to work and work well every time you use them. And you want to be able to clone them and give them away. That works in life and that works in business. If you can do those things and you can give them away, then life gets easier for you. It becomes better. The quality of your life improves. You have more time. You just plain claw back time. And that is, out of all the currencies in life, time is the one that there is no making more of. Mm-hmm. And so that clonability, that repeatability is an essential function when you think of business and work for a moment, because the more efficient you become at things, elegant, the faster you can transact, usually points to simplicity. I know how to start and how to stop and how to measure and how to even pause in the middle of things, right? Put them down and come back and pick them up very quickly later on. And then back to that idea of cloning it. The more time you're going to preserve. And then if you think in the form of business for a moment, it doesn't make a difference. Well, bitch, I'm only making about $5,000 a month in my business right now. I'm not going to make any more money right now. I'm having a really tough time. Well, if you made things more efficient and you had more time, your per hour earnings would be higher. Like, there's something to pat yourself on the back over. Instead of spending 40 hours this week to make $5,000, you spent 20. You just doubled your hourly rate. Well, okay, but I haven't doubled my money yet. What are you going to do with the newfound 20 hours? Then get efficient at the way you create more. So it doesn't take you 20 hours to double it up. It takes you 5 hours to double it up. Now you've gone from where 20 hours, where it was 40 hours, goes to 20 hours to do the same amount of labor for the same amount of money. Now you take 20 hours to do that labor and you spend 5 hours to start to recreate the process. Then in 6 months, it doubles up. While you do that, go get a person to come and work with you and teach them as you work forward. But that costs money. Yes. Yes, it does. The moment you can clone and replicate that process and bring somebody else with you, then the business is going to accelerate. It's going to grow. Two, you're going to create more opportunity. So whatever we do in life and in business, whether it's Savage in Business for a Moment or Simple, Elegant, Repeatable, is all about, which is why that word repeatable is at the back end. It's all about procreation. It's all about the multiple. You have to multiply in business to get further ahead. You have to multiply by adding employees. You see, we can point to statistical modeling that suggests that if Tom and Laura and Mitch, since we're the three people on this call, all pick the same function and then all go to different corners. I mean, we're meeting digitally. So if I go to the back corner behind my office over here, and Laura, you scoot out of the room, and Tom, you disappear to the corner, what is on my, screen left, but goes off over by that picture and stuff like that, filing cabinet, and do something, each of us performs 1 unit of labor. Tom's might be higher than mine might be higher than Laura's, Laura might be higher than all of ours. We produce 1 unit of labor. If the three of us collaborate and figure out how to make this work, the three of us produce a multiple higher than the three of us would produce individually. We produce a lot more together in a unit. That's procreation. That's a multiplying effect that comes in. So in business, when we talk about simple, elegant, repeatable, repeatability isn't just about making the process and tools that I use usable and functional to other people and then clone or put the skills, technical skills, in other people. It's replicating the multiples across the things I have to do. I have to generate more revenue. I have to generate more profit. I have to generate more cash. I'm going to generate more bills because of it. I'm going to pay more people. Yes, but they're all good signs if they're stewarded the right way. So our job in business, which is just a microcosm of life, is the absolute driver and the imperative that we should all have, which is to procreate, to create multiples, to increase it. If I take Tom and Laura and Mitch and we all decide to do one thing together for the next 90 days, we can make an absolute killer together. We can build an unstoppable monstrosity that no single other entity can waylay or damage. And so when we talk simple, elegant, repeatable, our job is to replicate and multiply as efficiently as possible. I didn't say quickly, I said efficiently, because that's the first word, simple. It doesn't help to sit there and just create these pockets of great ideas, but shitty execution, and make 6 of them instead. Now I've multiplied my problems by 6. It pays to make it work right the first time and then multiply that 6 times. And then figure out how to create a multiple out of that, because that effect is far larger because of it.
Obviously, speaking and training is a part of the way that you love to share your message. What other ways have you chosen that align with who you are, Mitch, to share your message? So we were talking about painting and poetry and singing and crafting and like all sorts of things that we would never even think about. Do you have any other ways other than speaking, writing, training?
At this, that's it, right?
That's it.
Yeah, being a professional talking head is just that. And I mean, I used deliberately poor language to explain something that is, thanks to the advent of the glowing box that we all have in our pockets or purses or pouches, or just freehanding it, just freestyling and raw dogging life, no case, nothing, just wandering around their hands, praying that the gods protect whatever the expense this device is.
Oh, I got to wrap around.
Right? There's a million different things to drag at our attention. Mm-hmm. There's a billion different ways for us to spend money and frivolously waste away time. If you can, and this is something that's always been very evident to me, and it's, Gary Vee and any number of other talking heads in the form of brand and marketing drivers, etc. If you can sit there and consistently talk to a couple of hundred people, then you got to figure out how to consistently talk to a couple of thousand people. And then you have to consistently figure out to talk to 10,000 people and then to talk to hundreds of thousands of people. I've made my bread and butter off of talking to a couple hundred people at a time. I lack now I make up for it in personality, but I lack what we will call certain Instagram worthy traits that would easily increase my audience a lot quicker. We know what I'm saying without saying it out loud, right? I lack certain traits that would increase my audience immeasurably 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 times over what it is. It's an irrelevancy. I talk to typically hundreds of people at a time. I do that lots and lots and lots of times a week. I hear back from people both near and far, and usually from people that I know pretty well. In fact, I had a friend of mine reach out last week and said, thank you so much for all your help and support. He's been going through a challenge the last little while. It had nothing to do with me as a business coach. I was just being a brother and a friend to him. And he goes, every time I see your content, I think you're talking straight to me and it's helpful.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. Thank you so much, sir. So if you're watching, love you too, brother.
Aww.
But it is constructive because that multiple that comes off of, let's say it's 200 people. Let's say you're on TikTok. Most of my TikTok doesn't get more than a couple of hundred views anyway, right? Just doesn't right now. We'll figure it out eventually. But if I do that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, I talk to 1,000 people. If I do that 30 days in a row, I talk to 30,000 people. If I do that for 12 months, I talk to 360,000 people. Now, maybe some of that audience is the same all the time. It doesn't matter. So they hear that repeated message that many times a day, times that many days in a week, times that many weeks in a month, times that many months in a year, over and over and over and over again. So that is the tool. You asked how else I convey the message. Just that. Like, I enjoy that. I love that. It is a part of what I'm passionate about. I enjoy the art of understanding how people make decisions. I enjoy the art of understanding how we create engagement, etc. Well, Mitch, clearly you're not that good. You need to really have a good look at my content, because I generate a lot of attention. I generate clients and customers. I spend very little to do it. I don't take it as seriously as I could, but that's a byproduct of my personality.
There you go.
If I turn all my time and attention to it, it would turn into what it's supposed to. Right now, it does what I want it to. And for me, that's good enough. Now, what kind of message is that from a dude with a phrase like savage in business on there? The enemy of best is good enough. And when something works, it means that you can leave it alone, because what are the 3 rules? Simple, elegant, repeatable. So I've got it to work. It works well. And I can clone it, make other people do it, or have it operate on autopilot. So now I can leave it alone and go to something else. So that's a lot of words out of me to do for a moment to come back and say that's what I do. That's literally what I do. I spend time with my wife and kids away from business, thinking about business all the time. I spend my recreation time thinking about business and absorbing content, listening to audiobooks and watching video. And, I've got a whole library I've stockpiled again right away that I'll tear through probably 12 or 15 books. And I'll put a concerted reading section into place. In about a month, I'll plow through those pretty quickly. I'll drill through all of those, and then they'll be good. And then I'll have more stuff to share with the world, kind of thing. But all I do is this. I talk to people. I create content. I talk to 50 or 100 or 200 business owners in a week. And I cycle that week in and week out for, now what is 8 years, right? Get this in to that simple, elegant, repeatable process. And that's what I do. Otherwise, what I do when I'm still thinking about business is I fight. I've been a martial artist and an instructor, and I've been in combatives, and I've worked in corporate security, and I've done all sorts of cool things all over the world. And I train. And I work out, and I hang out with my kids, and I spend time with my wife. And that entire time, I think about business. I work out, and all I think about is the next thing I'm going to do. Yeah. I'm on a 2 workout a day program right now. All I do is think about what I'm going to do next. That's it. That's all I do. Sometimes I shoot content when I'm working out. I hate this, and this hurts like hell, and I don't want to be doing this right now. Guess what? That's what life's like. And guess what? That's what business is like. Most of the time you're doing crap you don't want to do. Well, get over yourself, right? It's time to march onward.
Mitch, I had written down not so much questions, but questions for myself. So the questions would have been, what is my identifier? What are my 4 pillars? And then how am I a savage? As well as a simple, elegant, repeatable. In the how am I a savage, and when you train people on that concept, you communicate in a very warm way about the savage aspect of business. How do you mentor people so that they can communicate it in a way that it's not savage?
That's a great question, Tom. I don't think I can. Let me say this: I don't think I can communicate it without it coming across without it being a savage ultimate message, but in a way that's constructive to people so they can learn. That is philosophical. So I believe in a couple of things. So we start with foundational first. If Tom, you and I were to talk, and we said, and you go, Mitch, I want to figure out my savage message. Let's call it this. I want to make sure that I'm in tune to that. I'm going to ask you what you believe in. I'm going to ask you how you feel about things. I'm going to ask you about your framework for life. I'm going to ask you about the pillars that you're going to stand on, etc. Because when you have irrefutable proof of what you believe in, you can anchor that to how you communicate with the world. So my beliefs are very simplistic. Honor your gods, protect my family, defend my tribe. I'm a warrior. I was built for it. My hands were constructed for it. My mind is attuned for it. That's how I view business. That's it. So to do that, you have to have a code of conduct. You have to have a culture center. You have to have a tribe to hold you accountable. You have to have an ethical guideline. So the very first one is honor your gods, or honor your God, because there's enough Christian and Muslim and Jewish and other faiths out there as well that you don't have to have a polytheistic pantheon to do it. You can honor the one true God, or you can honor many. But that helps to build an attunement to a set of cultural norms, identifiers, and a set of ethics. Once you've got those in place, anything that is outside of that compromises the belief structure, and it must be dealt with unapologetically, right? When I deal with people, business and life is very fluid. If it compromises my beliefs, I'm unapologetically disinterested in dealing with it. Maybe violently so. Mitch, I want to do business like this. That's unethical as hell. And it's a terrible way to do business with people. Well, this is the way I want to do it. Then piss off. Good luck. I want your help to do it. Then grow up. You get more out of business because you conduct yourself in a fashion where people can trust you when they turn their backs. But in my world, the way I view it, Tom, is that if Tom and I are working together or doing business together and Tom turns his back, I'm going to cover his 6. You turn your back because you got to pay attention someplace else. You need to know unequivocally that you're safe. I got your 6, brother. I will cover your ass no matter what. Laura and I have been able to develop a bit of a personal as well as professional relationship over the last little while. I'll protect her family. Aww. I'll take care of her. I'll cover her 6, right? Mm-hmm. Because of my views on that. So when we talk about building, call it our savage mindset, we have to start with a foundation. What is our foundation? What are our tools and resources? What are the tools with which I will turn my hands to war? What do I believe in? Honor the gods, protect my family. Now I say protect my family because I think it's more inclusive in this statement, but let me not lie. Protect my wife. And when I say defend my tribe, that includes my children and my grandchildren and my parents and my grandparents and my brothers and my sister and everybody else. But it also includes my close hold tribe of those people I go to war with on a regular basis. Those brothers in arms I have out there. Some of them are in real conflict and some of them are in business conflict. So when you start with a foundation, it's very easy to build your rules of war. And your rules of war have to be uncompromising. These are standards. They're standards of practice and standards of excellence. Standards of practice are the guidelines by which everything's going to run, and standards of excellence are always changing because they're what we are in pursuit of. My standard of excellence is always a standard that I'm trying to achieve and work towards. So that creates uncompromising attitudes. That creates pursuit-driven, goal, outcome, and result. So you're always retesting, remeasuring, and redeveloping and regrowing. My coach, Dr. Keith Wagner, is one of the best in the world, one of the absolute best. And we're friends and business partners and co-conspirators and all this other great stuff. Keith is an absolute genius. He's one of the best at this. And I talk to him very regularly. He says this is constant, never-ending improvement. That's what part of the savage mindset is too. So Tom, if you go, hey Mitch, I wrote a note and how do I develop this? Be the one person in the room that everybody goes, I do not want to tangle with that person. Tom walks in a room, I don't want to tangle with that dude. That doesn't mean you're dangerous, like physically. That means that your competency level is so high that other people recognize it right away. Even people that don't know go, there's something about that dude I just don't want to mess with, right? Something about that dude, as soon as he opens his mouth, I trust what he's saying. It sounds smart. It makes sense. And people that know go, yeah, that's exactly what I expected. You know you've arrived when you open your mouth and everybody else shuts up.
Yeah.
They go dead quiet and they just listen. Or, in the case of our Amplify Your Message, and I know I've hijacked a little bit of our entire call today, but you guys are like, I'm writing notes, my head's nodding, and part of my brain is going, I've got them. Like, I got them right where I want them.
Oh, you inspired some ideas. Yeah.
Let's go for the close, right? Let's do this. Tom, we need to take this offline, brother. We're going to talk business.
Absolutely.
We build a standard of practice, standard of excellence. We understand where our foundation is. We build from there, simple, elegant, repeatable. And then we create pursuit patterns that both improve by design and over time. We build measurables that are conscientious. In other words, I cannot pursue my goals at the expense of something else important. And when we talk about standards of practice and standards of excellence, when it comes to any of us in humanity, it's understanding what our yeses and nos are as well. Once upon a time, I used to be asked, and like a lot of people, hey, what do you say yes to and what do you say no to? And you see these movies and videos all the time. It's like, I spent 30 days saying yes to everything. That's exhausting. It's also, I think, idiotic. It's not constructive. You can be railroaded anything. And how many YouTube videos times how many kid channels are out there showing off I got my dad to agree to everything for 24 hours and he flew us to Disneyland and let me eat cotton candy for breakfast, do this bunch of other bullshit. You're like, that's really banal, entertaining, but that's really idiotic at the end of the day. So your list of yeses has to be ridiculously small. That's where your standard of practice and standard of excellence comes in, right? That's where your ability to say, this is my uncompromising belief system and my unassailable fortress that I'm going to work from. And once we have our unassailable fortress in place, that's where you can display savagery in every aspect of your life, because working from an uncompromising place allows you to be uncompromising in your pursuits and allows you to be uncompromising with other people. And then very soon it builds a persona that people are like, I can't waste that person's time. Just as a personal aside, while I'm talking out loud for a moment, Tom, I can't tell you the honest relief and joy I get when a person slips through the cracks and says, I know you're really busy when you have time. That titillates me to know, because the impression a lot of people have is Mitch is busy, his time's really precious, and the fact that I get any of it, I better not screw this up.
Yeah.
I worked hard to get to the point so when people reach out, they're like, I know you're really busy, so when you have time, I need blah. And so if I give them that attention and I serve at a really high level, they leave and they go, holy crap, that was great.
Mitch, we have about a minute left. I just want to make sure that we know where to find you and what your favorite way to communicate is.
Absolutely. MitchCammidge.com. Very easy to get a hold of me right there. Mm-hmm. You can check out my men's event series right now. We're building up content in Tribe. InvictusForMen.com. You can go check out the website. We're changing it over. We've had a proto event. We're having our first full event next year. We're looking for about 25 or 30 guys to go to the mountains for 3 days and do something life-changing right here in the mountains of Canada. It's going to be an absolute killer. Don't worry. Invictus for Women is coming too. Invictus for Women is coming as well. But InvictusForMen.com is up and running. We got that Tribe going on too. And we've got some other titillating stuff. And the easiest way, just get me at MitchCammidge.com. You'll end up talking to a great member of my team. We got stuff for everybody.
Awesome.
So
Thank you so much, Mitch, for all of your rants and all of your words and the good ones and the bleep kind of ones. It's all good. You got your point across, and we're pretty open here. I appreciate you so much and everything that you do for us as well as the Blue Talks community. So sending some
love you,
love.
Laura. Tom,
Yeah.
it was a pleasure, brother.
Yep.
Great
Cheers.
to
Bye,
meet you.
Mitch.
Absolutely. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
So we have our next guest behind the scenes. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Awesome. Everybody's so ready so quickly this week. I like it. Wes, welcome, Professor Pete. Do you want to be called Professor Pete or Pete?
You can do it either one, Laura, whichever one works best for you.
PPA. Hi, Professor Pete. How are you?
Hi, Tom. Thank you both for having me on the show.
Yeah. So I like to start things off by shaking things up a bit.
Sure.
And I do that because so often in these interviews, you get the pre-scripted elevator pitch. And I think most of us are just sick of those right now.
Right.
So, and I also want to get to know Pete, like who, even before the professor part, who is Pete? And then adding on top of that, Pete's professor, here's his skills, here's the types of things that he likes to do. You're a human being first. So we want to start there.
Sure.
Are you ready for my question?
Yeah, fire away.
Okay, so the question is this. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Ooh, what I love. Okay, that is a one that I haven't heard. Okay. I would say fun. Probably because I try and bring laughter into people's lives. So that would be fun. Dependable, because I guess either dependable or reliable, whichever word is stronger, maybe. And also, I would say someone who listens. So listening. Because that's something that is a real powerful skill. And if you listen to what people say, and that's part of the reason why whenever I'm on a great show like this, I wear the air traffic controller headset. Because what it does is it blocks out any kind of ambient noise that's happening in my environment, and I can concentrate 100% with the people I'm on with. So that's why I think it's really important, because when you think about it, whenever, let's say, you're talking to someone, and I'm sure you both have had this situation where all of a sudden a text comes in to the person you're talking about, and what do? They pick up that phone, they look at that while you're talking or while they're talking to you. What does that convey to you? Says that whatever that text was more important than the conversation they were having with you.
That reminded me to double check that my phone is on vibrate. I was like, just in case. Oh no. Because sometimes guests, we had this a few times this week, sometimes our guests can't make it, or they don't know the link, and they're messaging me, and so my phone can ding and ding and ding all day long.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, oh no, my thought was like, did I take it back off? Did I put it back on? I don't know. Thank you for the reminder. Also, since we're talking about reminders, water reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to stay, especially for you guys, just going back to back to back to back to back. I mean, that's a lot of work. Kudos to both of you to have the energy to do that.
Well, part of it is I have this bucket of sand under my desk, and I'm just putting my toes in the sand.
Oh, wonderful. So you're basically earthing is what you're doing.
Definitely grounding.
Yeah.
It keeps my mind off of my back pain at the moment. So I started the day standing, and then partway through Mitch's, I just couldn't make it anymore. I'm just trying to make it through the day.
Yeah.
So, whatever kind of ways that I can support myself as I'm supporting the guests and the co-host and the audience,
right?
It makes it better for everyone. So
it does. And the fact that you've got that sand in there, it's a wonderful thing. We're all drawn. We're humans. We're drawn to nature. And, if you can put your feet barefoot in sand and grass and dirt, I mean, even if it's just for a few minutes a day, it's an enormous stress reliever. It really is.
So I just want to say thank you for bringing up your headphone and saying that you being described as somebody who listens is important to you, we can see that. If I had my headphones on, I heard the microphone really sucks. So you don't want me to wear my headset.
Well, it's so funny because this set that I bought, I've had this for, at least 5 years. And then I saw that it was getting discontinued. So I bought a second set because I figured, okay, if this one ever craps out on me, I'll have a second one. What I didn't do is I never double checked to make sure that that worked fine. And of course, I decided just a couple of months ago to go ahead and try it. And I was on a podcast, and the guy says, "Do you have some other headset you can use? Because it sounds terrible." And I'm thinking, really? Is it the plug? I was checking this out, and then I grabbed my old set back. I mean, and literally, it's an identical pair, and one worked just fine, one didn't. So, and of course, it was past the time where I could return it to get a different one. But
of course.
Murphy's Law.
Yep. So I did notice that it says, let's see if I can point. This is really bad. Stress. This is fun. Relief made simple. There we go.
That's right.
Is that a part of your message?
Yes, that is. So basically, when I started talking about stress back in 2018, what I found was that most of the resources out there talked, it would be like 200-300 page books on one particular topic, like yoga or deep breathing or meditation. And the thing is those all are great, but the reality is most of us have five minutes or less before we got to go into our next challenging situation. And so what I did was I wrote a book that has over 120 different ideas, and 95% of them 5 minutes or less. And the great thing about that is, something that works for me may not work for you, Laura, may not work for you, Tom. And so it's really good to have a variety of different things you can try. And all you have to do is try something when that particular thing works, run with it. That's the key. You run with it because you just got to find something that works. And if you only spend less than 5 minutes giving something a try and it doesn't work, oh, well, who cares? It was just a few minutes. Next time, try something else. And it's amazing because when someone finds something that works for them and they can do it daily, a couple of minutes a day, the compound benefits over time are enormous. They just got to get started and make it a habit. That's the key. And, research shows that a habit, once it's a habit, it sticks with us. But that habit takes anywhere from 21 to 60 days. So we have to do it regularly for it to become a habit.
Yeah. I do like that you highlighted the second part of that. Many people are like, 21 days to build a habit. No, that's like if everything is perfect condition and it was really aligned with who you already are as a person, and you kind of did something like that before, then maybe the 21 days.
If you're very lucky.
But realistically, it does tend to be closer to the other side of it where it's up to that 60 days. So
Absolutely. You bet.
Did I note? Oh, go ahead, Tom.
No, the other point that you made was the compounding effect. I think people miss that. There's so many things that we can do in our lives where there's a negative effect to it, and yet they don't necessarily see the positive actions that, let's say, this 5 minute today, 5 minute tomorrow, and on and on and on and on. Let's just say in 20 days, that 100 minutes could really be 250 minutes with the compound effect.
Yes.
Then when you go to 6 months and you go to, so if you could comment on that for us, that'd be helpful as well.
Yeah. What's interesting, I think from, since I'm not a finance guy, because compounding is a classic finance term. Yeah. So what I like to refer it to is once you have gotten into the habit. So let's say it's that 21 days, it's the 60 days, it's somewhere in between. What happens is you automatically are doing it as a habit. And what ends up happening, the compound huge benefits that we get from a stress relief standpoint, is the fact that when we start off doing whatever that activity is, we're doing it because we're almost at the point of we have no other choice. You know, it's just we're so stressed out that we can't concentrate. But once we've got it into a habit and that compound benefit, then what ends up happening is as soon as we sense stress starting to come on, we're automatically doing whatever we need to do. So it's just, it becomes kind of like autopilot. And so it may not even take 5 minutes. If we are making it a habit and we know what we can do, you can have an activity take 10 seconds and it will take care of that stress. So it's just, you just have to get into the habit. And so to get that compound benefit that you're talking about, Tom, you have to make it a habit. That's the challenge. And it's, you know, where I run into the hardest trouble with some people is they say, well, I don't have 5 minutes. I don't have 1 minute. And the reality is we all have 1 minute. Come on. The thing is that you're just, if you're not willing to spend 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes to take care of your physical and mental health, then that really shows that you're skewed in the wrong direction. Because it's so funny. I think about, we've all been on planes and they do that, in the event of cabin, pressure failure, the masks will come down. And I remember that I was on a Southwest flight and the flight attendant had a good sense of humor. And she says, when the masks come down, put the mask on yourself before putting it on a child. And then she says, or someone acting like a child. And then she says, if you get this, I don't know, are either of you parents? Okay, you're a parent. Okay, you'll love this. So then she says, if you're traveling with more than one child, put the mask on the child with the most potential first. So, it's so hilarious. But the reason I bring up the mask is that we have to put the mask on ourselves first before we can take care of someone else. And when we put our responsibilities that we have, whether it's personal or professional responsibilities, ahead of our health constantly, well, the problem is we're going to lose our health. And that is a big problem. And I mean, what I realized, and it was an awful thing to realize, but I'm so grateful I realized it, was when I ended up in the emergency room and an extended stay in ICU because of my stress. And what I found out was that I was trading my health for my career. And that's a really bad trade. And so, I now have a chronic disease that I have to deal with for the rest of my life because my body was telling me, you better calm down. You better, take care of this, do something. And I'll get to it when I get to it. I've got too many other things going on, both personally and professionally. I have to take care of those first. Those are more important. And the reality is, if you think about it, the last time either of you think about when you had a really bad flu or something and you had no energy other than to lie in bed. So at the point where all you can do is lie in bed and that's all you can do, what good are you to your career, your business, your loved ones, if you have no energy but to lie in bed? So our health is paramount. I think our two greatest assets are our health and the time we have. Yeah. And so don't trade your health for your career, because the worst part about it is that some people can't get their health back. And so it's not worth messing with.
I spent all of April on the couch, not being able to walk around my house, not being able to do all the things that I normally do because of exactly that. It's like, oh, but this is more important right now. But this is more important right now.
Mhm.
And I went from just having 1 or 2 issues, which I can deal with and push through on a daily basis, to my body slowly going, well, now there's 6 issues happening at the same time, plus all the other things you're dealing with.
Mhm.
My body couldn't keep
Mhm.
up. And it was like, you're staying right there
Yeah.
until you learn that you need to put yourself first again.
It's true. It really is. And, you know, I'm sure that if you think back, Laura, that your body was giving you signals
Oh, of
before that
course.
happened.
Oh, yeah. But it was like, but I need to finish this and then I can rest. But then I also learned that I'm addicted to the chaos because it's familiar.
Oh, yes,
And
yes,
I didn't
yes.
get that realization until I was on the couch. I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh. Every time I was feeling better and I was able to do things, then I would stop myself. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, but the chaos is more familiar. Let's go back to that. And then it would force me to do the things that would make me worse.
Yep. Yep. It's
Did I notice? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you're preaching to the choir because
I know.
I was, you know, I'm still a member of a 12-step program called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families.
Oh.
And addicted to chaos because that's what's familiar with. Until I walked into that program, I kept on wondering how come every one of the relationships I had as an adult was they basically, it was constant chaos instead of a workable relationship. And I realized that afterwards, I realized, oh my gosh, I was dating younger versions of my mom. And that's what was awful. It was because that's what I was trained. That's what I was trained. And as a kid, I didn't learn how to deal with the stress that I was under. And it was enormous stress. The dysfunctionality that was in my family was horrible. And, you know, so basically I took on the hero role. And so the hero role is the one where, oh, you just try and be the one that succeeds. And so I was the first one to go to college. I was the first one to graduate college. And then I started working very hard. And, you know, I just kept on ignoring all the things that my body was telling me, everything. That's how I was trained. Just keep pushing through and ignore it because I just want to get out of the house. You know, that's basically all I wanted to do. So, yeah, so I definitely can relate to that.
Did I see on your social media that you were talking about the vagus nerve?
Yes,
Okay.
actually, yeah. So I use a device called the Pulsetto device, and it's a relatively new one out there.
Yeah,
But the vagus, so what it does is it's a device that goes around the back of your neck. And then with electrical stimulation, it stimulates your vagus nerve. And when we have our vagus nerve stimulated, it tends to automatically generate a calming effect in our bodies. Now, if that, we lost Tom. So, you know, it's one of those things where, like, the Pulsetto device is just something I found out about, and I tried and I liked it. It really depends on the person. I mean, if deep breathing, you know, it's amazing how just taking 10 seconds of deep breathing can be calming. I love using visualization to help, you know, visualize a better outcome. There's so many things that we can do that don't take very long to help calm us. And like we were talking about earlier, we just want to be able to find something that works and run with it. And whatever works, use it. You know, that's the key. And there's so many different things that can work. I mean, it can be music, it could be dancing, you know, it can be walking in nature. It can be just standing in nature, like we were talking about, putting our feet in nature. I mean, there's so many simple things we can do. We just got to be able to prioritize ourselves. And one of the things, like, for example, the workaholics like I was, that would run by basically the calendar. The calendar was always the priority, right? So whatever was on the calendar was going to get my attention. Well, guess what? Put 5 minutes of self-care on your calendar.
Yep.
Treat it, put it every day and treat it like any other appointment you would have. You're not going to just ignore it. You're going to be there and you're going to be, take care of whatever needs to be taken care of.
Yep.
It's interesting you say that because when we get hungry, we eat.
Yes.
And, if we're thirsty, we drink something.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if we recognize triggers that we need some stress relief, we go and get some stress relief, healthy stress relief.
Exactly. That's a great point, Tom. So we were talking earlier about kind of the early warning signs. So, we get both mentally and physically stressed. And mentally, the early warning signs are going to be things like a lack of concentration. Instead of being able to focus on something, you can't.
What if that's your everyday?
Well, yeah. So then that's telling you something, right? Something like mood swings, where you go from happy to sad or angry at a moment's notice, or you get maybe a panic attack or anxiety about something that may or may not happen in the future, or it could be prescription drug or alcohol addiction. Those are all indicators that we're mentally stressed. And for those of us who actually have people who report to us, our employees, another one that is a classic mental indicator is if you have an employee who does presenteeism. Have you guys heard of that?
I think so.
They're there, but they're not there?
Yes, they're physically there, but they're not mentally there.
That's relationships like that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's, those are all indicators of that we're mentally stressed. Physically, it might be something like, let's say wintertime. We get typically we might get one cold a winter season, and we're finding that we're getting a cold every few weeks or every month. That's a classic one because our system is weaker. The most common one, back and shoulder stiffness, because those of us who work at a desk for a big part of our day, when we're stressed, what ends up happening is we may not notice this, but we tend to hunch over at our desk when we're stressed.
Oh.
And what that does is that puts extra pressure on our back and our shoulders. Excessive or not enough sleep. That's a classic one that we're physically stressed. Digestive disorders, where no amount of Pepto-Bismol is helping us. Or how about reaching for the Excedrin or aspirin bottle Tylenol every day or every other day instead of occasionally, because we're constantly having headaches. That's a classic one that we're physically stressed. And weight fluctuations. So, either gaining or losing weight rapidly. In fact, right before I was diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes back in 2008, I lost 30 pounds in 30 days. And I was not doing any dieting. I was not doing any different physical activity. I was doing my normal exercise. I was eating whatever I wanted, and the pounds kept coming off. And at first I thought, this is fantastic. I was in my mid-40s. I hadn't lost weight since my early 20s, and it kept on coming off. And then after the 30th pound came off, I thought, I better have this checked out. And sure enough, it came back and said stress-induced diabetes. And what's interesting is that there's only one cousin that I have that had diabetes in my entire family. No one else has it. So what ended up happening is that it was my pancreas was the weakest link in my body. I had all those things we talked about from the mental and physical warning signs. I had those for years. And the problem is I just kept on saying, yeah. I'm not going to do it. And in fact, here's the crazy thing. So even after I get diagnosed with the stress-induced diabetes, did I listen to my body about what stress was doing to it? No, of course not. just give me the medications. Fine. I don't have time to deal with this right now. So I continued to burn the candle at both ends for another 10 years until I ended up in the emergency room 1 hour from being comatose and an extended stay in ICU with a severe case of diabetic ketoacidosis. And for the listeners who may not know what that is, basically my body was eating itself alive because of my stress. And I mean, how crazy is that I let it get to me that badly? And here's even the worst part about it. On my second day in ICU, I had gone back to the corporate world. And lucky me, here I am in my mid-50s, and I have a micromanager boss. So my boss texts me at roughly 6 a.m. on my second day in ICU. Mind you, my boss knew that I was in the hospital. And they say on the text, you have a webinar you need to run at 8 o'clock. What are you going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? And so amazingly, I did not have my work laptop in the ICU. I had my phone. So what do? I start instead, people said, oh, you should have just told them to, go, jump in the lake, right? I'll be nice, not say what I really thought. But instead, I grabbed my phone and I started doing whatever I could to reschedule that webinar. And the crazy thing about this is when I was admitted to the ER and then into ICU, my blood sugars were so high that the medical grade glucometers could not read my levels. They had to estimate my blood sugar levels, and they estimated them to be 8 to 10 times higher than normal. And it was because I was stressed out about this major project I was working on that the micromanager boss was pushing. Well, so on the second day in ICU, my blood sugar numbers had come down back into more reasonable numbers. Still higher than it should be, but more reasonable than, the regular glucometers could read them. And as soon as I started sitting there trying to reschedule that webinar, a nurse came in to take my current readings, and my blood sugars were skyrocketing straight back up like a 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
And she says to me, pretty much a perfect stranger, she says to me, you realize that's what put you in this hospital bed in the first place. And that was the epiphany moment I finally had, because my friends, my family had told me that this is a slippery slope you're on. And I kept on going, yeah, I know. But it was somebody who had no skin in the game, wasn't going to gain anything from telling me, just told me this. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm trading my health for my career. And that's a very bad trade. Yeah. So it was something. And here's the crazy thing. So a couple of days later, I got out of the ICU. The day after that, I decided, you know what, I have no choice. I have to focus on my health, because I may not be here, around to meet my future grandchildren if I go the way I'm going. So I decided to start applying different stress relief tools and techniques. And what I noticed was that not only did my stress go down, my glucose numbers as a diabetic went down, my weight went down, and my energy level went way, way up. It was as if I had found like the fountain of youth. And here's the absolute most amazing thing. If you saw a picture of me from 2008, when I was first diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes, and you see me now as I look, other than a little bit more gray hair, I actually look younger today than I did in 2008. That's what stress does to us. It ages us. And so, I basically just want to make sure that people realize that. And, people ask me, they go, well, how come people don't want to do even a couple of minutes a day? It's because they don't take it seriously enough. If you take it seriously and you start applying something like this, believe it or not, you can actually reverse the aging if you do what you need to do to make sure your body and your mind are not constantly stressed, and stressed with the negative stress. That's the part that is more important to think about, because people say, oh, stress, that's all bad. And the reality is, no, it's not. There's actually good stress and bad stress. The good stress, it's called eustress, EUSTRESS. It's basically what allows us to get things done when we're working on something that we enjoy, which we're passionate about. We have something that we want because it's important to us. That's fine, because we need to be able to get things done on time. But the negative stress really comes, the research in my book, I found that it comes in two flavors. So one is ruminating about something in the past. So, and a classic here is where we have either guilt or regret about something we did or didn't do in the past. Okay. Yep. And what happens is we continue to let that churn inside of us, and it does no good to us because, first of all, it's in the past. We can't change it. However, we can take the positive learnings from it. And if we take the positive learnings and then just forgive ourselves, then we can move on. So that, the ruminating is one. And then we talked about it earlier about anxiety about something that may or may not happen in the future. Well, let's say a classic example would be having a difficult conversation with someone. So, you have to have, whether it's a family member, a boss, whoever, whatever situation it is. And we sit there and we think, oh, our human nature, our inner critic says, it's going to go terribly, right? And what ends up happening? We often manifest that negative outcome. Yeah. Instead, what I recommend to people is, if you have something have some anxiety about something that may or may not happen in the future.
Today?
Today, it could be 5 minutes from now, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Instead of imagining a negative outcome, so let's take that difficult conversation. Instead of imagining it go badly, imagine 5 seconds after the last word of that conversation is, and you see the other person, you visualize the other person smiling, you're shaking their hand, maybe giving them a hug. And then you find all of a sudden say, oh, wait a minute. Now all of a sudden my stress starts going down because you're now manifesting a positive outcome. So.
Okay, I have two things. First one is, I don't have an old picture of you, but I do have an old picture of me.
Okay.
I think they were only 6 months apart. Okay.
Okay.
So that's the preface.
Let's see.
Oh, wow.
So
I'm trying to get the.
Wow.
Do you see the difference?
Yes. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And I was like, I look 10 years younger after 6 months of actually paying attention. Also,
yeah.
There we go. And the second part was, you just described my day since this morning. I woke up to a text saying that the bus for my daughter to bring her home from school isn't running. There aren't enough bus drivers to fill in, which means she can't walk home. It's a 2.5 hour walk. And she doesn't know how to get there, and neither do I. Like, she'd need GPS, and her phone is dead. So then I'm trying to figure out, like, can her teacher take her home? No. Can her father take her home? Maybe. Maybe. He works an hour away, but he's also the one that pays people. So if he's not there, people don't get paid, and there's all that. And then on top of that, like, we figured that out. I got my parents to come up, which they're 40 minutes away the other direction, but they decided to come up. And then my co-host for today canceled. So I needed to find somebody last minute. Thank you, Tom. And then also, like, the amount of people this week that have just not come to their interview has been insane. And then on top of that, the back issues it's been kinking on and off. It just, like, everything today all at once was like, so you're just describing my day.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was like, it'll all work out. I'm fine. I can figure things out as I go.
Yep. Yep.
What's interesting
We'll
about
make it work.
that one, Laura, we'll just call it a micro or a simple synchronicity. I
Yeah.
walked outside this morning to put the recycling out. This was before you had contacted me, and my neighbor, the younger son, is outside, and I looked over and I said, "Is everything okay?" He said, "The bus broke down."
Oh.
So,
Oh.
and so anyways, it all worked out for them. And it's interesting that because they had a big
Yeah.
track and field day and so on and so forth.
Ooh.
And so,
Those are
but it
my
all worked out that your bus is broken down. So next door, Professor Pete, are the buses over where you are today?
It's funny that you asked, Tom, because normally I can hear that yellow bus going right by, and I did not hear it today, but we don't have the snow out either. So, I'm assuming it was working fine. But on the other hand, my heat pump crapped out. So, I was more attention probably to that than I was the bus going by.
But the idea this morning was just, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. The amount of times things have happened. I'm going to tell you a story. So one of the old events that we had, I want to say about a year ago, because it was before I moved for the first time. I lost power and therefore had no internet. My phone was almost dead. My laptop was almost dead. Thankfully, my daughter's laptop had some juice. So I plugged my phone into my daughter's laptop, used the data from my phone, got Heidi to host the event so that she could bring people on and off behind the scenes, because I can't do that from a cell phone.
Right.
So she's running behind the scenes. And then I think it was that same week that the guest coming on, like you, could not hear me and my co-host.
Oh, no.
So in the private chat, we're typing questions for her to answer. And thankfully, she's a conversationalist too. So she just took the answers, lengthened them out a little bit, and we had a great conversation.
You figured it out. Isn't that? It's
the things we've had to deal with. It's just mind-boggling. But what do you do in those moments? You smile, you hope for the best, you do what you can, and you just keep going.
It's true. And, a point that I thought of as you were describing your day, when we look at a particular thing that's stressing us, one way to put it in perspective is to ask ourselves whether or not whatever we're dealing with at that moment is going to be, is that going to make a difference 5 minutes from now, 5 hours from now, 5 days from now, 5 months from now? That's when we can help prioritize what really needs our attention. Because it's funny how we can get wrapped up, especially when we get all these things. Isn't it funny how when we're stressed with certain things, it all comes at once, right? It's I think one of the I remember the first time that I paid attention to this was when I was working retail in high school, and I worked for, I don't know if you guys remember Radio Shack, and So, well, Radio Shack, unless it was a very busy store, usually could only afford to have one employee at a time in the store.
No.
Oh yeah. So, and I would think, I would go and I would be in that store easily a couple hours and not a single soul come in.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, not one person would come in. It would be a whole group of people would come in. And I'm thinking to myself, why couldn't they come in one at a time so I could give them personalized attention? No, it was either all or nothing. And it just that's what happens when we get stressed. We tend to attract more and more and more of it towards us. And so it's a weird phenomenon that I think it's some of us believe in the power of the universe and like energy. So if we're admitting out the negative energy of stress, guess what? We're going to attract back that negative energy. But if we send out the positive energy, which one of the best ways to do that is just to have gratitude for what you have, then you're going to attract back positive energy as well.
Synchronicity time. So at the end of the show yesterday, we were talking about different ways that we could get the guests involved, because usually I have some sort of theme. We were coming up with the ideas of, well, maybe it's gratitude, maybe it's something that brings you wonder, maybe there was a few other ideas, and then you just said gratitude. I came in today thinking my guests will tell me where to go. There you go. So then, before I ask you where we can find you, can you tell us just one thing that you're grateful for?
Absolutely. I'm not, my improv comedian would say, oh, it's the rubber boots time, put on the rubber boots because it's getting deep in here. But no,
that's just me. Sorry.
I'm grateful that I got to be on the show to get to meet you guys.
Yeah.
I just, that, and what's interesting is, we were talking about habit, and my wife and I, we have a habit that we do every night. We have our gratitude exercise. And what we do is either she asks me or I ask her, what are you grateful for today? And when I start saying what I'm grateful for, it's a recap of whatever happened during the day. But I always start with, I'm grateful for my health, because all else is secondary. And that's because I lost my health. So I always start with that, because that's my number one personal value now too. So, and then I'm going to, one of the things I'm going to say that I'm grateful for is being on this show, because I had a great time talking to you guys.
Me too. I mean, there's so many more questions I want to ask, but we do have a limited time. Where do we find you, and what is your favorite way to communicate?
So probably the easiest way to find out more about me and to connect with me is go to my website, which is PeteAlexander.com. So those listening, PeteAlexander.com. And probably, connecting with me on social media, or you can send me an email. That's happy to do that and start the conversation.
Awesome. So you like email as your favorite way to communicate?
I wouldn't say it's my favorite. It's the most efficient, though.
What's your favorite, though?
My favorite is on the phone. It really is.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm old school with that. I like to, especially, I'd actually say Zoom calls, because I get to see the person, on the screen, which is, the thing is that with, on the phone, if they're fully engaged, it's a great conversation, but you can always tell if somebody's distracted on the phone.
Well.
They can't get away with that as easily on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
It's really true, because all of a sudden, you'll be talking, and then if all of a sudden they start going, oh, well, what's this? Or squirrel, So it's like, I prefer that, as a conversation. So now, of course, it's, I would say that if it's somebody who's trying to sell me something, my favorite communication is snail mail.
Snail mail. I didn't bother checking the mail. It wasn't there.
Exactly.
So, Pete, I also like to hold space at the end of an interview to just make sure that you share what's on your heart, what's on your mind.
Sure.
So if there's something that you needed people to take away from this conversation today, what might that be?
Oh, I would recap what we talked about earlier, which is don't trade your health for your career, because it's a very bad trade. It
is. We were talking to Mitch right before you, and this is the 4 pillars that I created. And one of my 4 pillars is, you can't really see it, well-being.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So I talk about story, well-being, high performance, and marketing, but really it starts with the story that you had, why you did it. And then right afterwards is the well-being. Is like, if you can't, me too, focus on that, you can't expect the high performance and the marketing to work.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, come on, Light. I'm going to be a ghost for a while. Gotta love it. That's fine. Thank you so much, Professor Pete, for joining us. It was such a delight.
Laura, thank you so much for Tom. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And Laura, thank you so much for having me on the show. You guys have a great rest of the day, and thank you so much for doing this.
Bye, Pete.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye. You too.
Okay, our next guest is behind the scenes. Tom, are you up for the challenge of starting the conversation off?
Oh boy, absolutely.
You are? Okay, so I'm going to just take a couple minutes. I'll be right back, and I'll allow you to introduce our guest. And Alli, I'll be right back. So give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Good. Brought you to stage. Welcome, Alli. I will be right back. Go ahead, Tom.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Alli, how are you?
I'm doing so well today. How are you, Tom?
Very, very good. Everything is, it's been one of those days of interesting flow.
Those are beautiful, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but there's been some ups and some others, but it's been all good. So Alli, we actually don't know each other. So let's just imagine we're meeting for the first time, and I'll say, hi, Alli, how are you? What can you tell us about yourself?
Oh, of course. Well, it's lovely to meet you, Tom.
Well,
Yeah, thank you. So, a little bit about me. I guess I would call myself a Reiki master, spiritual teacher, hypnotherapist. But what my real focus is in that realm is really supporting the spiritually curious. So, in that sort of model of support, my real kind of, I would say, like purpose through my work is to support individuals in really discovering, what their infinite potential is. So really helping them to wake up to that so they can start to see, okay, maybe I've been living through the veil of limitation when really there's so much else that's waiting for me on the other side. And with that, it's also about supporting people who are feeling curious about spirituality and wanting to maybe lean into that, but they're not quite sure what that means to them, or if there's rules they need to follow or how they do that. And then it's also supporting people in learning how to self-heal themselves or ways to do that, whether that be through cognitive functioning or energy healing. And then really it's about supporting people in discovering that they can manifest an abundant life and they get to determine what that means for them.
wow.
Ooh.
Okay. I'll give you a quick
love that. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
a background of myself, because if we're just meeting each other, I can't just, hi, how are you? Tell us about you. And then I'll segue into some of the things that you had said to me or to our audience. So for myself, I've been in sales and marketing for a number of decades. And along the way, I started meditating. And so I've been meditating for well over 30 years. And in that, I've taken some other courses. And one of them would be the Reiki Tumo, which is a form of Reiki. It has been very, very interesting in terms of moving the energies around. So it's been a very, not systematic, but a very intriguing unfolding of, let's say, this invisible world that is behind the world of the five senses.
Yeah.
So when people first come to you, what's that initial conversation like when they're not quite sure how to start it, but there's something there that they want to get out to you on the spiritual side and get a deeper understanding of it? So if you could help us with that, that'd be intriguing, because I'm sure a lot of people are out there saying, what's my first step?
Yeah, of course. And I find it often starts with a stuckness. Often there's this sort of barrier, or there's just this feeling of like something's not really aligned for me anymore, or I'm feeling kind of unfulfilled where I may be used to, or, often something might happen in their lives. So it could be a big trauma or a little trauma, might just be that little tea that's the cherry on top that happens to crack them open. And they're feeling like, I know there's more for me, but I don't quite even know what that is. So I find generally it's like this feeling of sort of a bit of lostness in a sense, and going, how do I put the pieces back together? I don't even know if it's the same pieces, if it's the same puzzle, how do I sort of like recreate myself? So it's kind of like, I almost feel like it's the butterfly trying to come out of the chrysalis, but it's just so confused and it doesn't know what to do with itself. And it's sort of in that limbo. And I feel like that's where I kind of come in.
I think we're all familiar with the limbo. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Alli. I've been feeling that limbo the last few months because I can feel myself. I describe it as I wrote this big chapter. I have this big chapter. The chapter's ending. It's really sad. Oh my God, the story's going to end. And then I have to turn the page. So like, I know that chapter is done, but I haven't started writing the next one yet because I'm afraid, but yet I'm still kind of grieving the last chapter. So that's that limbo phase. And it's funny because I've been describing it all week. I'm like, this is where I was. But thanks to this week, having these conversations, I can feel myself starting to turn that page and pick up the pen and just get ready to go again.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in limbo?
Oh, it comes in phases all of the time, and I find I was actually having a conversation with a friend yesterday. Actually, she was on my podcast yesterday, and I was sharing that when I go through these processes of like immense learning or like, massive kind of absorption, I find I have like a week or two after that where I'm sitting there scratching my head going like, I don't even know what I know anymore. Like there's just so much information that's within my brain and my body and my soul that I'm trying to like alchemize. And I go through this week or two where I feel like I just need to retreat and I actually feel kind of lost. And then I'm like, should I be doing something totally different with my life? Like what's happening? And then after that 2-week phase, it's like I wake up one morning and everything has settled. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Everything's sort of back to like normal-ish. Yeah. I feel like, sometimes we just need those moments of self-reflection to make sense of it, especially in the world that we live in. I mean, we are bombarded by information that we're constantly having to discern. There's so much stimulus. We live in the age of information, which is wonderful, but sometimes I feel like we're not meant to be, well, I know we're not meant to be as stimulated as we are in terms of like the social world, right? Yeah. And so, then we have these moments where we feel overwhelmed and we're like, well, why? Like, I don't know, why am I so overwhelmed? Well, I think it's life in general. So I do think we just need those moments to retreat and to process and allow ourselves to maybe just separate from the world for a little bit so that everything can settle, so that we can come to understand it again.
I'm going to assume you're an internal processor versus an external processor.
So personality plays a role too, of course.
Yes.
I find that those are storms that come into everyone's life. And then everything seems to come at us at once. I think the previous guests were talking about stresses, and stress seems to show up in bundles or truckloads. And what I've done for myself is I don't make decisions in those times. So if I'm in the middle of a storm, whatever it might be, there's no decisions. I know the storm will end. And when the storm ends, then I can get to my balanced point. And if I need to make decisions, make them at that point, and then I'm able to take steps forward. So just very cautious in the stormy times.
That's a really beautiful point.
I just had a visual thanks to you, Tom. I always like to describe, like I was just saying to Professor Pete, that I realized in the last couple of months, I've been addicted to the chaos because it's familiar. And when I would teach people about chaos and how to deal with the chaos, I would always talk about finding the eye of the storm, coming within, finding that center. But that, I think, also ties in with my desire for the chaos, because then I never get out of the storm. I'm just always in the eye, always in the eye, always in the eye. So I like this idea of the leaning in, the seeing. Let's get on the other side of the storm and let the storm pass. Let it pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're all from Canada, so we've all experienced snowstorms. And you notice that when the storm's over, the sky is blue, everything is clear. We've got some work to do in terms of cleaning up and so on and so forth. But there's a peacefulness after the storm. And after every storm, there's going to be that peacefulness.
Well, and I think too, there's a level of surrendering that's necessary. Like you say, you kind of pause and wait. Right. And so if we use the metaphor of the snowstorm, well, if you need to get from point A to point B, are you going to push yourself to drive through, that 3-hour snowstorm, or are you just going to wait the 3 hours and you'd probably get there in the same amount of time? Right. depending on what's happening. But, I feel like that moment of surrendering is necessary. And when you talk about, allowing that stress to settle or to not make decisions when you're in that stressful point, I feel like the same kind of goes for our intuition. If we're feeling like our mind and our body and our soul are really chaotic and our nervous system is unregulated, then is that really the time to be trying to connect with our intuition in a deep way and trying to get the answers? Or is it just surrendering a little bit and going to, say, meditation or Reiki, which are great tools that support us in calming the nervous system and practicing that one pointed attention? You can sit and channel that for a bit. That's sort of the surrendering too, and allowing that peace to come back in a little bit. And that's when we're going to gain that clarity, not when the mind is full of the fuzz. We need to just settle the fuzz first.
Yeah. I was making fun of myself earlier this week because a couple weeks ago, my brain fog was still to the point where I couldn't think of the word pen. Mm-hmm. And so good luck trying to get me to do interviews. I could spend 5 minutes just trying to figure out what I'm trying to say. But I like this. Alli, I think we've had like one-on-one conversations before, not in depth like this. So I wasn't here at the beginning. I do want to take this time to get a little deeper for a moment and ask you a question that just kind of shakes things up.
Sure.
Okay. So Alli, the question I like to ask people, and I'm kind of gathering all this information, creating research around it, is if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
I would definitely love one of them to be kind. Mm-hmm. Passionate, I feel, would be the other one.
Yeah.
And intentional.
Ooh. So then how do the words and concepts of kindness, passionate, and intentional, how do they play a role in your message and the work that you do?
Well,
or who you are as a human being?
Yeah, of course. Well, I feel like regardless of what we choose to do for our work, whatever act of service that we feel aligned to lean into, I really do feel like integrity, for one, is kind of like the umbrella of a lot of that. But I think integrity goes a really long way. And I think it really starts first and foremost with ourselves. Am I actually honoring myself? Am I taking action in life that speaks to my values or that feels really good to me? Or am I trying to show up through my work as something that I'm not? And so I feel like a lot of us try to sort of broadcast ourselves in a certain light through our work, or try to find ourselves through our work. And I think that's going to happen regardless. But I also feel like it's really important to be very sound in who we are as an individual. So I feel like when we can really connect to who we are and be comfortable with who we are and confident with who we are, then that can start to show up in the work that we do too. And so, for me, a little bit of my backstory, I feel like I really kind of woke up to life after we had our son. And I really had this day. I mean, I had really bad postpartum depression to the point where I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do any of it. And I literally had a day where I was like, this might be the day that, I'm going to expire, basically. Yep. And on this day, I remember standing in our living room, and I know the blinds were closed and my partner worked away. I didn't have any family here, and I was just like bombarded and overwhelmed. And our little guy, I know all babies cry, but this kid cried a lot. And so I was just like completely overstimulated. And this day I was standing in my living room, and I just started to have that conversation of like, well, what if I did that? Or what if, kind of pondering some of the details of that. And it's as though, like, I feel like the universe turned the lights on for me. And I remember kind of having to squint my eyes in the living room because all of a sudden the sun was just beaming so brightly through every little nook and cranny of those blinds. And I received what I call like a spiritual download. It was just this message, and this feeling just took over me. And it was the message of infinite potential. And it just kept saying, you are more than the story that you're telling yourself, because the story that you're telling yourself right now is not even true. And it goes far beyond you even feeling like you're being a good person. It's about being a great intentional person, being your truth, authentic self, so that you can create this ripple that goes out. And it was very much about me, supporting my son and figuring out who he's supposed to be. And then so he can do the same with who he connects with. And it just kept showing me this ripple. And I mean, it was probably a matter of like 10 seconds that it all just sort of came in, and I just had this knowing. And it was ever since that moment that I sort of woke up and said, like, wow, I don't think I've even been living for myself, my entire life. And at this point I was 30. So the 30 years of my life, I was living for other people. I was kind of like that bag in the wind that was just kind of going wherever the wind took me, versus being intentional and going, well, what do I want to choose for myself? And so, it's really about, if I can support people through that kindness and passion and help them to figure out that they do have the power to choose. It's not only about being reactive to life, that you get to be proactive. And is it always going to work out the way you exactly want it? Well, no, because there's a bigger plan. And sometimes we don't always see the big picture. But if we can just start to take those intentional steps, then that's going to pave the way for the life that you've always been looking to live or been dreaming of.
That makes for a great follow-up question. What makes for a great life and a life worth living for you, Alli?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I consider myself an extroverted introvert. So I guess I would be an ambivert. So I really cherish my alone time. I like to have people interaction. I enjoy it. It's stimulating for me. But then I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm capped out. So then I do need to have that time to retreat. But for me, it's really about having those intentional, joyful connections with the people that I really align with those that I really love. So that's part of it, is the joyful connections. But then it's also about creating that positive impact or creating that ripple. So if I can do that through my personal life and my professional life, then that's really adding to fulfillment for me, feeling like I can touch the heart of others and support them, and feeling like they do have a certain level of power in their lives, then that really fills up my heart.
If I may be so bold, you are definitely an introvert, but you are outgoing. So you love the social aspect of things, but as you said, like, you recharge on your own. I'm an extrovert. If I'm by myself, I spiral.
Okay.
Being around other people, like, that is what recharges me.
Yeah.
And so this whole week, you see my energy going up and up because I'm like, people, yes.
Yeah. And that's the big difference, right? Yeah. Extroverts, they like to recharge with people. Introverts need to recharge that battery by themselves.
I love that you have that understanding. But I hope that you know this already. Some of the best speakers, most of the best speakers in the world are actually introverts.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
But that's great. Okay. I love to tell introverts, because they have this belief for some reason that introverts aren't the majority of speakers. And I'm like, no, they actually are. Do you know what makes them a wonderful speaker?
What's that?
They do a lot of the processing in their head. So when they finally choose to speak, they have it all thought out and in a clear and articulated way. Mm-hmm. As an extrovert that's also an external processor, I have to have conversations in order for me to really understand on that deeper level. Yeah. And so sometimes when I speak, it just takes so much more work to get to that spot that people don't want to do work. They're like, let the introvert.
Like there's more to it.
Exactly. Oh yeah, there's so much more. But I love this. On that topic, I want to know how you love to share your message and why that relates to you as a human being.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's conversations like this. It's being able to have these open conversations where you just get to show up as you, and there's no real heavy expectations. You just get to like intentionally share your message. And I actually just recently, it's been a really big passion project of mine for a long time, but I did finally just start up my own podcast. And so that's been really fun, because my intention with that is to have conversations with interesting and inspiring humans who can teach us a little bit more about what it means to live curiously. Because I feel like curiosity is a really powerful gateway. And as adults, I feel like we tend to not intentionally suppress it, but I think we kind of forget about it. We tend to kind of get swept away in the seriousness of life versus the playfulness. So if we can come back to saying, well, even what are some like introspective questions that I can ask myself that can support me in leaning into curiosity, and whether that be through journal prompts or conversations, or maybe it's doing research, or there's a website you really like that often shares info, but just finding ways to allow yourself to lean into curiosity consistently, and whatever consistently means to you.
Yeah. I feel, or I would like to think, that I do that every single day.
Oh,
but every single day, it's also a matter of being courageous around it too.
Oh, for sure.
Because sometimes I'm like, do I really want to know the answer to that? Do I really want to find another rabbit hole, which I will definitely fall into?
Oh, I get lost in those all the time.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Sometimes the rabbit,
sorry,
the rabbit hole, you get down there and it's really just part of the storm. Right?
Yeah.
And so then it's climbing back out of it. There's so many rabbit holes, particularly with social media now, that we can fall into. And even when we try to be disciplined about it, suddenly we find ourselves in front of the TV watching 5 hours of hockey. And that's old social media.
Yeah.
And, whatever our distraction could be. And then I think it goes back to some of the core principles that we align ourselves with that can, take us out of that rabbit hole and get us back into more of our authentic self. When I say authentic self, more of our soulfulness.
Oh, I agree with that. I think there's so many distractions that definitely they pull us, right? They pull us out of flow, and they definitely sort of like, they almost kind of pull us into that limbo, don't they? It's like this stretching that happens, and then we're having to kind of bring all the pieces of ourselves back.
You mentioned, you mentioned podcasting. Does speaking come naturally to you? Does interviewing come naturally? Or was there some sort of like, I don't know if I should do this, I'll just figure it out as I go? Tell us where you're at with that.
Yeah, well, something that's very interesting about me that not a lot of people know is I actually used to have a really bad stutter.
Really?
So up until about the time I had my son, I had a really debilitating stutter. It would show up more so when I was very tired or very nervous. And so I remember being in middle school, like just hating when the teacher would pick you to read something out loud to the class. Like, I mean, I was fine in conversations with my friends usually, but there were still times when I'd get really excited that I would get hung up on letters. And there were certain letters that would always be like my trigger point.
Yeah.
And so I actually remember, I think it was like after high school, and I was going for interviews, and I'd have to get really good at having my thesaurus online, because if I'd go to say a word that I couldn't spit out, I'd have to quickly come up with another word that meant the same thing without sounding like I was totally wacko. And so I got really good at like making sure I had that ready. But then after I had our son, I got to this point too where I was like, how am I going to communicate with my child? Like, I don't want him to pick up on this as a learned behavior. So I need to figure myself out. And actually, Reiki was one of the ways that I got rid of that. So I channeled to myself every single day, because I feel like it's not only channeling, but it's the intention. Like, what do I want to happen with this channeling? Why am I doing it? And so it was to clear that. I also had a bit of a, I'll call it like a soulful visualization of what caused it. So when I became aware of what caused it, and then also started channeling to myself, I was able to clear that. And so it's been a pretty beautiful journey ever since.
Aw. I like stories like that, because the whole Amplify Your Message event, we talk about the ways that we share our message, but then not everybody's going to be a writer. Not everybody's going to be a speaker. Not everybody does art or whatever way you choose to share. There are things that we want to do that align with us, that feel like this is how I want to do it. But we don't necessarily have the skills or ability or desire at the moment. So I love that you showcase, this is what I wanted, but here's how I worked through it. I love that.
And it really just, it started with me just wanting to be able to communicate to my child. And then it sort of just kind of grew and flourished from there.
All of the unintended consequences of that action, of that healing, is, then allowing other people to open up, and then, for you to be able to share your story, then others are able to share the story. So that's fantastic.
I found you. I was like, I know your name and your face. I know that I've seen it somewhere. You're in the first Blue Talks.
I am. That's me.
Are you in any of the other ones?
Just the first one.
Just the first one?
Yeah.
Because I like to look at the back and I'm like, okay, who do I know now? Because at the time I only knew a small percentage. But now that I'm having these interviews and I'm part of the community, I'm like, oh, I know you and I know you and I know you and I know you. I love it.
A personality to the face now.
Exactly. I was going to ask if you were a writer, which is why I checked my book, but obviously you're a writer.
Yeah. So I did. I contributed to Corey's book, to the first one. And then I also have 2 children's books that I've written in the meantime as well.
Aw. Was this your first writing?
So that one, did I write that first? Oh my goodness. I can't remember
this
now.
Was 2020, I think.
Yes, I would have written that first then.
Oh, you're the very first chapter.
That's me.
Oh, okay. There you go. There's Alli's page. I was like, you have to show off. There you go.
Thank you.
Right? For my son, Hunter Ray. Aw. Okay.
Yeah. He's like the light of my life. Honestly, that is like the greatest gift that I could have ever been given in this life, is being a mom to him.
What inspired you to write?
You know what? I remember back in elementary school, and I forget who it was that came to our school, and I wish I could remember his name, but an author came to our school, and I might have been in like grade 3 or 4. And he gave this whole kind of presentation and read his book in front of our school. And that just always kind of stuck with me. And I've always wanted to write children's books. And it just, I guess it was sort of just in the back burner. It was never really in the forefront. And then after we had our son, I felt like, okay, now's the time. And he inspired me. He's sort of the inspiration behind the character. So the first book is called Robbie the Robot Steals the Moon. And it's very much, so it's basically about this little robot who's trying to be helpful, but he's actually kind of making a mess of things. But he's doing it because he's just so full of love and really wants to be supportive and be helpful. And so in the long run, it just kind of reminds us that we're all interconnected. And when we're coming from a place of love, that we really can do no harm, from a children's perspective. Yeah. And then the second book is Robbie the Robot Hugs the Stars. And that one's more so about the idea of interconnectedness and reminding us that we're part of something bigger.
I love how you bring your message to the kids too, not just the adults. It's like we could talk about these big concepts and simplify them and give them to kids and have them understand.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, kids are living in a hypnotic state, right? They're highly suggestible. So when we're speaking in really positive, influential language, then they're going to absorb that so much more quickly than an adult would, right? It's going to take an adult a few times to really kind of get the message. But when you share it to a child, they're like little sponges. So they're literally seeing that as their ultimate truth. And I mean, for myself, I really didn't come into the world of like personal development until I was, in my late 20s, in my early 30s. So if we can start to shape those little minds at those really young ages, then they're not going to have to do half as much work as I needed to do when I started to figure out that there was more to life.
The big question is, what did Robbie the Robot do with the moon?
I'll have to read the book.
He stole it. And you'll have to find out what happens after that.
I love children's books. They take everyday life, they make them a little absurd, but yet there's still lessons there. And some of my favorite books as a kid and TV shows as a kid. Do you remember TV shows when they used to go, and the moral of the story is, and the blank.
They lay it all out for you.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I probably should watch it again. Wait for the rerun 3 months down the road or summer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ever think sometimes that we get to the end of our lives, and let's say the 5 minutes after we've departed, we get to where we're going to get to, and finally the lessons of our life have been revealed to us, and we go, oh, that's what it was about.
Yeah. And it's often so much more simple than we could have ever thought. I think we tend to we make things messy, right? We think that there needs to be so much detail when often it's like the answer is just right here if we're just willing to shift our perspective a little bit.
In elementary school, I would joke because learning multiplication tables at the time, they were new. It was great. I just memorized everything. I had a great memory. But then as I got older, I didn't remember my multiplication tables. They were way too easy. So my mind was like, oh, we don't need to remember that. That's what a calculator's for. But yet I could do calculus. But don't ask me to tell you what 7 times 6 was.
Yeah.
So why do we overcomplicate? Do you have any insight on that?
I think it's because we often dismiss the simplicity of life. I feel like because of the world that we live in and as adults, we tend to lean more into the logical, analytical mind, that we spend so much time analyzing something that we tend to make up all these different stories around what we think it actually is, as opposed to just seeing it for what it is. And I think it's that process of rumination that kind of takes us away from the truth. And I think also there's a bit of social conditioning that happens, right? Collective conditioning when we're looking at, the media and all the things that we see and how we absorb that, so I think there's a few different pieces that play there, but I think it's a matter of just feeling like, oh, but it needs to be more than that. It can't just be this. It's like we deny that almost.
Oh, it's like the question of what makes us human, or why are we here on life, or what is the human condition? It's like, well, we can't overcomplicate it. Does it have to be? Does it really want to be?
Well, and you know what? I think it comes down to love and fear, right? I mean, obviously there's a spectrum. There's going to be a lot of different emotional states and states of consciousness that come between, and we're meant to feel it all here. Absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, it's about coming back to love whenever we can. And if we can come to notice how we're living and go, oh, well, is anything that I'm doing kind of connected to fear? Or am I only doing this because I'm fearful that this might happen, or, what have you? But it's about becoming aware of that frequency and then going, okay, well, how can I come back to love or choose it instead? Because I feel like that's ultimately where we're meant to live. We're meant to live in that space of love. Life happens and we kind of dip into those other emotional states, but we're meant to live in love. And I think a lot of us aren't. I think a lot of us are living in some of those lower frequencies, and then we blip up to love sometimes and we feel it for a bit and it's nice, but we're quickly pulled back. And so when we can connect more to what the needs of the heart are versus getting stuck in the logic of the mind, that's when we're going to feel more clarity.
Mm. I love to visualize things. So when you're talking about fear versus love, I'm picturing fear as this bear. And so if we're afraid of the bear, we're just running away, and away does not have a direction. Just it goes everywhere. So if you're there with your family, your friends, your community, your loved ones, all of that, are you all going to hang out with the bear? Are you all going to stay together? No, you're going to just flee any old where. But if you're focused on love, love is bringing people in. It's always gravitating things to it. And then we come back one. And at the beginning, I know that you had mentioned oneness, right? So that I can feel that now, and I can see that now, that when we're focused on the love versus the fear, the things that used to be scattered automatically and naturally come together with ease and flow, so that you feel that love and the oneness of being together. Oh, that feels so good.
And how beautiful you can come to recognize that in your own life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're always trying to get back to the one.
Yeah.
In everything that we're doing. So then, to your point, Alli, when we start dissipating the fear and more of the love comes in, we're simply moving towards that oneness.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I absolutely agree with that. And I feel like even when it comes to a spiritual connection to something more, it's what you choose for that something more to be, and I mean, not everybody's going to agree with me when I say this. I mean, especially if it's people who are, really kind of deep in particular religions. I mean, I think there's a space for everything. But I honestly feel like when you're connecting to your something more, if you're being intentional and it's loving and it's for the highest good of yourself and everyone else involved, then I don't think it really matters what name you're calling the something more or what face it has or how it looks. I feel like we're all connecting to the same thing. We just need different stories and different pathways to make sense of that.
I think that's part of where the flying spaghetti monster came in. It's like, for those who know, there's a story behind it about teaching religion in school. And the idea was, if you're going to teach religion, teach all of the religions, not one religion, which was why this person had an issue.
Because there's truth in all, right? There's truth to be found in everything.
So then they're like, oh, okay, we're going to just teach all. He's like, good, I'm going to create this made up flying spaghetti monster, and you're going to teach that in school too. They're like, but that's not a religion. There's a whole detailed story about it, but it's kind of the same thing. We want to have something to focus on. It makes us feel whole. Whatever that is for you, lean into it. Mm-hmm. And you'll definitely find others that are going to lean into it too. For some reason, we talked about a religion a lot this week.
Oh, wow.
And how many people used to be, this is the pattern, Roman Catholic, very specific, Roman Catholic. I'm like, I don't remember if I used to be Roman Catholic or just Catholic. But I do know that my personal choice was to step away from that because I like the idea of learning about all of it.
Yeah.
And then making my choices as I go. But such is life. And
as Alli had said, there's truth in all of them. And I think as we get further down a path, we start to look back and see that, that really resonates within that religion or that faith. And interestingly enough, to your point about Roman Catholic, remember when I was younger, I used to think, I'm Canadian. Am I a Canadian Catholic? I'm not a Roman.
I think I did that too.
And I couldn't understand, what was the distinction then in time. Of course, you understand some of the history and, again, Jesus wasn't a Catholic, and the religion came out of that. Muhammad wasn't necessarily Muslim, but there was a religion that came from it. Moses wasn't necessarily, well, he was Hebrew. So it's interesting what we do over time with ideas and how they shift and they change. And then we scratch our head and say, where is the truth here? Truth is there. It's somewhere there. I'm not sure where it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important to come back to the heart as you're learning about these different religions or different stories or different methods of connection, because you can go, okay, well, what piece of this sits with me and feels really good and feels loving, and what piece do I maybe not need to take on and practice for myself? And that's where, you can maybe take certain guideposts from one religion and different methods of connection from meditation, or maybe there's something over here that you like, and you get to build your own. I mean, we're all such unique slivers of source that we're not all really meant to have the exact same journey or the same process of connection. We're meant to experience that subjectively, personally. I think it's a very intimate relationship that we're a part of. So to make rules around that, I feel is unnecessary.
I love that phrase, slivers of source. That was really good.
Yeah. Well, we are. I mean, I think we are part of God or universe or divine, whatever word speaks to you, but it is also part of us. So therefore, are we not also divine ourselves? If we're expressions of it, then we're also embodying it.
That's the piece I'm working on. Divine was one of those words because it had a very religious connotation. We also talked about the power of words earlier this week, where we can stop ourselves because our understanding and experience of a certain word isn't something that we can move forward with or align with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that you use the word divine with all these thesaurus type words, the synonyms, because it takes away that tension that makes me go, whoa, 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 whoa. Divine, I don't know. I don't want to be religious again. I like my spirituality part, but it makes me feel included. So I like that it's that inclusive language too.
Well, and that's where, even when it comes to the word God, for myself, I was raised Ukrainian Catholic.
Oh.
And so when I, started to enter into the spiritual world, God kind of didn't sit well with me because I felt like, oh, well, that belongs to the Ukrainian Catholics. And I don't know if I really align with that specifically. So I don't know if I can use that word. But God really doesn't belong to any particular schools of thought. It simply is, right? And so that's where, when it comes to discovering what your connection to something more is as well, it's figuring out what word resonates for you. Because as much as we're souls having a human experience, we still as humans rely strongly on language. So when we can figure out what word makes sense to us, that's also going to make it easier for us to connect to that something more. And after all, when we're talking about the heart and coming back to love, and that's what it's all about. I mean, if you were to mix up the letters of earth, what do you got? You get heart. So
I want to say thank you for being so open and honest about talking about things that sometimes are taboo, like religion. I appreciate the conversation. To make sure that we know where to find you, what is your favorite way to communicate? And then tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, of course. Well, I like Instagram. I do a little bit more than the Facebook world, but you can find me on both. But on Instagram, it's @4CuriousSouls. So it's FOR_curious_souls_. So that's me on Instagram. And then my website, allimackenzie.ca. And then my podcast, which is the podcast for Curious Souls. And you can find that on all streaming platforms.
Thank you. And I like to hold space at the end of an interview to just make sure that whatever you came to say, with my alarm going off, whatever you came to say that was in your heart or on your mind, that you get to say it. So if there's something that you needed to share with people from our conversation today, what might that be?
Honestly, I feel like we really touched on all the key pieces, just reminding people that they have infinite potential. They are infinite potential. And if there are limits that are getting in the way, to kind of look at them and go, are these actually true? Or, can I write a different story for myself?
Yes. The answer is yes. We can write a different story. I'm telling that to myself out loud. We can edit. We were talking about editing a lot this week. We can edit our stories.
Yeah, of course we can.
Last question, about 60 seconds or so. Is there anything crazy cool that you're working on that maybe we can be a part of? It's fun to know what people are up to.
Yeah. So, I'm always looking to interview interesting and inspiring humans. So if you're looking to be a guest on my podcast and you have a pretty interesting background, or there's just a story you want to share that's connected to spirituality or curiosity to some degree, you can reach out to me just through my website and we can definitely chat about that. And then I'm also teaching an Akashic Record course. So anybody who's looking to learn about the Akashic Records or how to read them for themselves or other people, then that starts in the fall. And then anyone who wants to learn Reiki, I teach that in person or online. And I can do that one-on-one or in groups. So anybody who's looking to learn more about the energy world, they can do that. And then hypnotherapy as well is one of my key sort of models of change. So I like to bring that into the world as well.
I love how we're all multi-skilled. I don't think anybody here has like this tiny little bit of skills. No, we're all multifaceted. Thank you so much, Alli, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest. I've really enjoyed this. This was lots of fun.
Thank you, Alli.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, it was great meeting you both.
You as well.
Okay, take care.
Tom, feel free. I'm going to stick you in the backstage and just come back when you're ready.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next guest is behind the stage. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to come up with me. Yay! Welcome, Mila. The first thing I always see are those butterflies on the wall behind you.
Well, I tried to put up my virtual screen, but it doesn't work on StreamYard. So that's what came up. And also, I do want to say I just had face surgery for melanoma.
Oh.
So a cautionary tale: wear your sunscreen and get checked once a year, because I didn't realize that it has legs.
It has
So,
legs?
yeah, they
You
grow
mean it'll
underneath
spread?
and they can go really spread and you get more cut off. So mine was small. It was a small
Yeah.
one and I put a lot of makeup on today, but I'm using it to tell everyone to not, I didn't realize that melanoma can have legs and spread, you know what I mean? So anyway.
Do you mind if we just take a moment? Like, what is melanoma? And because you're experiencing it, what is melanoma? And is there any sort of thing that we can be aware of for it to start?
It's cancer. It's cancer,
Okay.
and it kills people if it gets too big. And I had it before COVID, but I couldn't go to the doctor during COVID, so I went back and it grew a little bigger, not too bad. But I've heard of some people, having part of their noses cut off and and bringing in skin from behind, and so. But here's the secret. Okay, you have to find sunscreens that have zinc or titanium dioxide. Any of the ones with the long O words, I can't even pronounce them, are poison and go straight into your blood. I heard an article on NPR about that, and they don't work anyway. When I use those ones, I burn. But zinc and titanium dioxide, it can have either one, and I find a really good one. There's a really good one at CVS, just the CVS brand, and then there's Beach Bum, and there's a few other ones. But make sure that it just has zinc or titanium dioxide or both.
Does it just start as like redness or patchiness or like what?
You're not sure. That's why you need to get checked, because sometimes it's something you can't see. And mine was it looked like just a brown spot. Like I had one here just burned off and it was fine, didn't have any legs. But this one turned out to be the melanoma. They cut a little and then they test it. And then they have to do a seam. It's just, even though it was only here, they had to do a seam so I wouldn't have a lump. So I did go, hi, Tom. So I went right through the whole thing. But I'm telling everyone, because I've been teaching. I teach every day and speak somewhere every day almost. So I just been saying, hey, I've got the scar. Don't get what I have.
Yeah. It's not really where I thought we'd start, but I appreciate you sharing. Thank you, Mila. Because I'm already in the market for some suntan lotion on my face.
Yeah.
I burn. I go like red and then go back to being pale.
Because are you a redhead naturally? Because redheads have that kind of skin, and you have to really watch out for it. I tan, but see, when I was young, I'm a lot older than I look. But when I was young, there was no such thing as sunscreen. It wasn't even invented yet. You know what I mean? And people would put baby oil on. I didn't do that. But I was a beach bunny. I'm pretty sure the Beach Boys wrote those songs about me. Just kidding. I'm a little too young for that. But I was out there on the, Laguna Beach, San Clemente, San Onofre, all those beautiful beaches. Yeah. I still am.
You still are. I like to start my interviews with a question that just kind of shakes things up. We already kind of shook things up, but I still like to ask because I'm doing research and compiling all of these. Mm-hmm. So Mila, I would love to know, if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Generous.
Mm-hmm.
Probably to a fault. Spontaneous. And totally creative. Yeah.
Creative, I've heard almost every single time in some way, shape, or form this week.
Good.
So, generous, and I'm actually writing to a fault because that's what you said. To a fault. I love that. Spontaneous and creative. So why those words? Why not butterflies, polka dots, and rainbows? I don't know.
Well, because I just did my Blue Talk at UCLA with Corey and everybody. Thank you. And my talk was called From Poverty to Abundance Through Giving. And when I was young, even though I didn't have dinner, or lunch, I'd be sitting there watching all the other kids feast on sack lunches. And I don't tell you this to make you feel sorry for me. I want you to go out and help the kids who may not have enough food now, because later on I married an organic farmer and have all the food I need, and we give a lot to food banks. But my superpower, no matter how poor I was and how neglected by my own mother, a single mother who was striving to make it, of course, I forgive her everything. I could give things, and I gave. Even when I was 8, when I was 6, when I was 15, I was always the giver with all my friends. And then as I grew up, I gave more, and I became a missionary in my own neighborhood, and I ran a huge children's theater company for 30 years without making a penny. But I wrote all these beautiful musicals and plays, and if I was home, you'd see them. They go all over the world and are done by other theater companies. But the thing is, because I gave, it seems like the more I give, the more I get. That's not why I do it, but I just live a total life of abundance. I live in a beautiful home now. I own a lot of land. I help a lot of people, and I'm planning on giving more.
Aw. Was there a time that you started the giving? Was it when you were like really, really little?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Always. I just had that kind of spirit, I was just kind of born that way, I guess. I was raised yogi, so I was raised in a alternate religion that from birth. I was fortunate in a way, so that was part of it, that was part of what we learned, of course.
Yeah. What do you do today? You said you had a Blue Talk, and you talk about generosity. What was your Blue Talk about? How's that aligned with your message?
Well, mainly I'm from the company Pen to Publish, and I am a writing, publishing, and public speaking coach. But my main focus on life right now, and I just finished a novel about it, is giving more. And the novel is really funny novel. It's about a very comedic yogi. I took it after a real yogi that I've studied and a lot of people know, and a surfer girl in San Diego. And it's very about giving. It's almost like Pay It Forward on steroids. And so that book, I just finished it, and it's beautiful. It's a character-driven book about all these people and how more giving and trying to make it on the planet. They even make an app, and I mean, it's just a fantastic book. So I just finished that, and so that was my talk at Blue Talk, was how giving lifted me up out of the mire and the mud and the poverty and made me who I am today.
Aww. Have you been in any of the Blue Talk's books?
I am going to be in the next one. I took my talk and I wrote it into the book, because I even though I've written 14 books, this is
wow. Yes, show it.
My passion book about my famous suffragette grandmother. She came from a terrible childhood on a Colorado cattle ranch, and a teacher saw how brilliant she was. I can't even talk about what happened to her there, and got her to Smith College, and she just had a star above her head after that. Her first job was putting together, you're not going to believe this, Laura,
what?
The Pulitzer School of Journalism with one other man. And then she became the first woman lobbyist in DC. She worked with Alice Paul. She went to DC, to London, and spoke all over London with George Bernard Shaw as his speaking partner, and then came back and taught Eleanor Roosevelt public speaking. And in her early 90s, took me along while she was the elder suffragette, speaking on the podium with Gloria Steinem, Marla Thomas, and Jane Fonda. So I've been kind of raised in her beautiful, beautiful aura. She took me along everywhere. And anyway, so this book is every woman's story of winning the right to vote. And we brought her into the modern age, because she was a modern woman back then. So we brought her into the modern age by giving her Andy Warhol kind of look on the book, And anyway, this is my passion book. I have this one. We do this anthology, the Cinderella Monologues, where all these beautiful women tell their stories of coming, like me, from struggle and maybe unthinkable situations to success.
Yay. It's possible.
Wow.
It's possible. It's possible.
Very powerful.
Everything is everything. That's my whole mission in life, is to facilitate people to write their books and get their story out, but also with my new book coming out about the giving, I'm hoping that if everyone could just go out every day and do one little bit of giving. For me, it was my superpower as a child. It's like a puzzle. I wake up in the morning, I go, how much can I give today? What can I do? And I try to do it incognito that no one knows. And that's fun. That's the fun. It's like you'd like that, Laura, because you're kind of like that. You know,
I do that all the time.
May the fourth be with you, and all that stuff. Well, I try to do it without anyone knowing, and it's just so much fun. Anyway, that's my superpower.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things that I do love to do every single day is, I have to get noticed for this one though, because it's public. But when I'm walking somewhere, I like to find somebody who isn't smiling. Maybe they look like they're having a bad day, like just something. They just need something. So I'll watch them walk by, or I'll stand next to them or something, and I will give them a genuine, this is the true part, like the important part, a genuine compliment. Oh, that shirt really brings out the color of your eyes. Like, wow, I love it. And you just keep walking. You don't even wait for a response. You just keep walking. Or I love your shoes. Or like, did you just get your hair cut? That looks beautiful on you. Whatever it happens to be, find something that you genuinely love. And then I tell people, but then I don't give them time to respond, because almost always they will go, oh, these old shoes, or something like that. They'll shrug it off. If you don't give them a chance to shrug it off, then they have to sit with it.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Well, you know, and it's true. You could. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I'm sure they go home, or for the rest of the day, that has risen their level of consciousness. And
you can watch their eyes sparkle. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. And then to what Mila's talking about, I'm sure they pay it forward, because then they're going to notice something about someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And then that energy just continues.
That's the hope.
I've had so many people come up to me and even tell me, boy, you smiled at me across the aisle at the store. You know, I really needed that today. So, you know, even opening doors, little things, we can do little tiny things, or we can do big things. I mean, maybe take soup to a friend who's sick, or, you know, drive someone somewhere who needs help, or become a mover and shaker in a nonprofit. It can be from anything, but little tiny things, I think, sometimes mean the most, and it's what we can do all day. Like when I was giving my Blue Talk the other day, I said, yeah, I already opened 3 doors for people before I even came into this room.
Yep. We're going to go down that rabbit hole just for a moment here. So how many times, as people who like to give, and Tom, I'm just going to assume that you're in on this too, that you hold the door open for everybody. They're there. If they're right behind you, you just hold the door. Do you do that, Tom?
I do that. I was conflicted yesterday, because what is the acceptable distance that someone is away from the door that you don't hold the door for them?
I wonder that too. I do. I'm at the post office. I wonder that.
So I had 2 people, and they were outside the 20-foot range.
Oh.
And so is it 1 breath, or like how far someone travels in 2 breaths? But if I get to 3 breaths, then I'm holding, like, now it depends. If they really need some help, certainly. Yeah. But if they're able-bodied, how, like, what's the distance? What's the
3 rules.
Green zone?
Yeah, I think I know the answer. The answer is you need to let them be the givers too. So maybe they need to hold the door open for someone else.
So what I did is, because it was 2 doors, so I opened up the door and I was holding it. And as they were 2 steps away, I started opening the other door, but I let go of that door that they could grab it. But then I don't know the second person. I didn't see them in the peripheral. I don't know if they were walking slowly. But I was, again, that's exactly what my thought process was yesterday. Like, what's the goal? What's the green zone on door opening?
I like that we're talking about this. So I have 3 rules. The first rule is, if they're within 10 feet, I hold the door.
10 feet's good. We can handle 10 feet.
Yeah, if they're between like 10 and 20 feet ish, where I'm kind of like, then I do the math in my head of, well, how fast are they going? Are they going to be here in the same amount of time as it would take me to casually walk the 10 feet?
Right.
right?
And then
Hold the door open. And then rule number 3 is if they're further than that or around that, and just as you said, Tom, do they need the extra support, or would it be extra kind to them to hold the door for them? Somebody with some mobility issues, maybe a baby carriage, lots of bags, whatever it happens to be, then I give them a little bit more leeway. It's like, I don't want to stand there for a minute, but I will up to 30 seconds stand at the door and wait for those people to come to the door.
I will slow my gait. Just
That too.
to try and time that a little bit.
Yeah.
And in these times, unfortunately, sometimes they'll say, I can hold my own door open. I'll say,
Yeah.
I get that more as a man. As a younger woman, I don't get that a whole lot.
So
My mother taught me a lesson when I was young. I said, I don't want to let everyone give to me, Mom, because I'm a giver and I give it. And she goes, Mila, you have to allow them to give too, because that's part of the giving thing. So that was a big lesson for me at one point, you know.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine, a gentleman. He sent me a text one day after I was having some really bad time. It was a really beautiful, heartfelt compliment. He's like, you are the most beautiful, intelligent person I have ever met inside and out. And immediately I was like, no, and completely rejected him. I was like, no, I'm not. This is text. So of course you can't hear sarcasm or anything like that. He didn't respond. And I ignored him for 3 days. And after about the 3-day mark, I was like, I see what I did. I told him that his version of reality was a lie and that I wasn't receiving his gift, just as you said, of kindness. Mm-hmm. Just accept the compliment. I don't get to choose his feelings or his version of reality. So then I sent him a text. I'm sorry. Thank you for the compliment. I'm learning. I accept your gift.
Yeah, I taught theater for 30 years, and I had to teach the children and the adults to have done both. And when they're standing in line, because we would do lines for people to come out and give them their kudos, and someone would say, oh, you were so good today. And you go, oh, no, I missed my line. Well, I go, they don't know. They didn't have a script. You made their day. You just say thank you, no matter how you felt about your performance. I trained that for 30 years, drilled it into their heads.
Good.
Same thing.
Well,
like what you're
tell
saying.
everybody else. Just accept the compliment. Good. I'm going to give you a compliment, and then you get to give somebody here or elsewhere a compliment. And then, Tom, I'm going to ask you to give somebody here or elsewhere a compliment. And if they see this, great. If they don't, whatever. So, Mila, I'm going to give you a compliment. Every time I have a conversation with you, the first thing I hear in your voice is love. You're just like always this playful, sunshine, life-giving love. And so that's my compliment toward you. I love that.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Wow. So am I supposed to give one back?
To me, to Tom, to anybody listening or at home, doesn't matter. Just a compliment to somebody.
Well, I want to compliment everybody in the world, but I will say, Laura, that you have a beautiful ethereal presence, and I'm always drawn to you, and I always wonder more about what you're about.
Oh, thank you. Tom, do you want to give a compliment to somebody?
Well, this compliment's going to go to both of you.
Oh.
Because interestingly, the way that it's set up right now with both at the top, both of your energies are so light in terms of weight, but also light in terms of brightness. And so it's wonderful to sit here and experience both of you at this time on this podcast.
I'm going to give a bonus compliment since we're doing this. It's great. I'm loving the energy of it. For those who don't know Tom or don't know Tom well, like having one-on-one conversation with you in the Blue Talks networking, you were joking about this before. You look like more of the jock kind of person. And so the expectation is not the energy that we receive from you. You are such this lovable teddy bear of a man that like has so much wisdom that's why I was like, who do I want to be co-hosting with me? And I sent a few messages, but really I was hoping it would be you. And when you said yes, I was like, yay, I get to share more of Tom with the world. So,
well, thank you very much.
My internet has a little bit of thing. I was hosting a huge summit yesterday. Oh my gosh. And I don't know what happened, but my internet, I'm in an office downtown because at my ranch, it's for sure spotty, but it's not supposed to be spotty here. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So along those lines of the gratitude and the love and the appreciation and giving compliments, how does that play a role in, you said pen to publish, so being a publisher and helping people with their books and their stories?
Well, I don't charge as much as other people for what I'm doing because I really want to make it affordable. I kind of make it what I could afford. Everyone says you have to double your prices, and I don't feel like I have to do that. I really want to help people, and what I really love doing is it's like a puzzle again, is putting together the book and showing them how to use KDP and how it's free and all the attributes. Do you know most publishers don't know all the attributes? They don't know every little tiny aspect that you can do to get your book noticed. And I think I might know more than almost anyone. I'm just finishing another book. I'm a prolific writer. If I was at home, you'd see my 22 plays and musicals behind me. I have 14 bestsellers on Amazon. But my new book is, besides my giving book, is Blow by Blow, How to Get the Most Out of KDP. And I'm telling you, every little aspect, like even when you follow someone or you leave a review, it builds algorithms for your book. The more books you have, the bigger your algorithms. And so, and here's what I'm teaching people is write that short book first. The shortest book you can put on Amazon is 36 pages with a spine, and then use that for your outline for your longer book and get 4 books out of that book, because then it's like, okay, then you do the 125 comfortable book, the 200-page book, the longest books we're doing. And I'm even going backwards because I did all my plays. They were long, and I realized that most schools and theater companies couldn't have time to rehearse an hour and a half play. So I cut them to medium and short, and they were still just as good. So I'm going to take this long 300-page book and put it in 5 shorter books. So get them, you can get all these books. So I'm the queen of modular because I did those plays 40 years ago, and I'm just getting my book back. This is my book that has been all over the world as a textbook. Teachers can open it and play a game in 10 minutes. And it was done traditionally, and I'm getting it back from them because it's kind of stalled, and I'm putting it on Amazon myself because they're so old they didn't even put it on Amazon. My author page isn't on it. And so I'm kind of helping people get their books back too from publishers who didn't really get their books out as much as they thought they might have. So I'm kind of like all over the place, but I know it all. And I have a woman who works with me who even knows more than me. She knew AI 10 years before any of us ever heard of it. She's a whiz, and she wants to work with me now. Again, she's the one who put my book together to begin with, my grandmother's book. Anyway, there's a whole thing, and I love giving it out, and I never hold back on information. Everyone tells me I'm like a fire hose. I go, yep, but that's how I like to learn, and that's what I'm going to do. So,
well, something will stick. It's like lots of information, just kind of find something. And if all of it's valuable information, all you need is just that one drop. You don't need all of it.
Right. I took from an herbalist for 18 years. She's written 17 books. She's amazing. And she took me to Italy twice to study, and she's amazing. And so she teaches like that. And for like 10 years, I go, what? And then 10 years later, oh, that's what that plant is, but you get all the information and then it slots in as you need it, I suppose. Maybe.
After my accident, I tried about 50 different modalities of healing, but not all of them worked in the moment. But now that I had an understanding of all these different types, because I was just desperate to find something that helped, what I learned in one helped me learn another, which helped me learn another, which helped me understand this one. And it was just this beautiful web of everything helping understand and amplify everything else. So now that I have more of that understanding, I can go and choose in the moment what I think would be best for me. Or I can pair things, as we were talking earlier with Alli. And then you get more growth with it.
Exactly. I love that. That's kind of my way of learning. If someone doesn't give it all to me, I feel like I didn't get my money's worth or my whatever worth. Wow. And I really want to know it all. In fact, when I was having a baby years and years ago, she's 30 now, I read that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and everyone is giving me advice. And I had a lot of friends no, I don't want to hear any more advice. I'm tired. I just wanted to hear it all because then I could, like you said, decide what works. But if I didn't know it, how would I, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know. Bringing up the whole motherhood advice. How many moms do you know that are like, do not give me any advice?
I know. Give me all the advice. You can tell me everything. And then because I'm really I can discern things. I'm so analytical that I won't use it if I don't want it. But I want to hear it. Mm-hmm. Even conspiracy theories. I want to hear everything. I want to know.
You're just curious. I like it. So we talked about writing a lot. You said that you were on the Blue Talk stage. Was speaking always something that you like to do, or is that something you needed to overcome in order to do?
No, I've always wanted to do it because I would follow my grandmother around. In the beginning, I wasn't very good, though. She got me onto the speech team at college and the debate team. I was better at debate. But on the speech team, we went around to other colleges and competed, and I wasn't good. I wasn't good at all. But from doing it, and that's how I teach people, from doing it, you unravel your tongue and you get better and you get where, you're still nervous. In fact, they always say, if you're not nervous, you better watch out and be nervous. A little bit of nervousness can actually carry you through and not let you be too cocky. And the main thing about speaking is being prepared. And the main thing about speaking is don't memorize your speech. Just have a bullet list here. So you have a little bullet list. For every speech I make, I have all my little bullet list. And then by about a third of the way through the speech, I lose my way on the bullet list, but it doesn't matter because the people don't have a script and they don't know what I was going to say. And I can be very eloquent. Most of the time I'm not nervous. Once in a while, I still am. So that's okay, but I speak once or twice a week all over the world on
nice.
and summits. And I did 2 or 3 this week already. I love it. It's always been my passion. I've always wanted to be a speaker, but I want to tell you a secret. Speaking is a lot more scary than being on stage, because on stage, when you have a part, you're hiding behind that part. But when you're speaking, it's just you and the people. So the main thing I tell people is just get the experience and you won't feel that nervousness anymore. Make 10 YouTubes for 2 minutes each. That will unravel your tongue right there. There's all these little secrets and tips.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did you find, was there a difference on the Blue Talk stage, or was it similar to other stages that you were on?
No, actually, I'm going to tell you something. I was nervous at the Blue Talk because, for one thing, it was being filmed. And the other thing, they had some people in there that were a few people from Hollywood and stuff. And I don't know why I was nervous. And I was, but I got my video back from Tyler and I don't look nervous, but I felt it. And I hadn't felt that in a while because I speak in public and on Zoom. And, in my own town, I speak to women's groups. That's the best way to sell a book. If you get a book, start speaking to groups, because everyone in the group feels obligated to buy your book, or they will they will buy it because they feel inspired after your talk. So that's the best way to sell books, I've found. But I was a little nervous at the Blue Talk. Did you, Tom? Weren't you making one at Columbia? Were you going to Columbia?
Yes, very much so.
And how'd that go?
It was the entire experience was awesome. It was fantastic. As somebody had asked me, how was it? It was one of the most inspiring experiences of my life. Just all of it. Particularly connecting with everyone that was there. And now that even the 3 of us have spoken on a Blue Talk stage, then there's that connection that we have. And so I would encourage anybody that is trying to delay their speech to get out there and do one. Because as soon as you finish the first one, you want to do another one, whether it's Blue Talks, TEDx, or wherever. And as an example, you're saying then speaking to smaller groups, I've had that thought in my mind, and then it's time. Then if the thought's sitting there, it's there for a reason. Then to find these other groups and start sharing the message. So and then there is that nervousness, but once you step on that stage, it just dissipates. And as you say, you get a third of the way through what you're going to talk about. Suddenly this other energy comes in.
Yeah.
And it's almost as though the speech has a life of its own. And I remember looking up, and I was only 4 minutes in. I'm going, 4 minutes in. Then the next time I look up, I've got 2 minutes left.
Yes.
And I had to wrap this up. And I ended up wrapping it up. I'm not sure if anyone, heard the end. I'll have this. I have my video as well. I haven't looked at it yet. But it was an incredible experience. It was wonderful. It was great.
You were there with my friend Irma.
Irma. As
Yes.
I said to Irma.
I love Irma.
She's
I think
fantastic.
Irma's on tomorrow.
Okay.
Ooh, she's special.
Yes.
We've done books together. We did this book together. I guided them through the whole anthology process about 2 years ago. And she's on the cover with me and the perpetrator. And then all the people. We did these beautiful letters. Dear Abundance was mine. Other people did Dear Tragedy, Dear Trauma, Dear Childhood, Dear Me as a younger person. It's a beautiful little book of letters to whatever.
Oh, there you go. Dear Universe.
I love that. That should be in this book.
So one of the things that I love to do is I love notebooks. Oh my God, I love my notebooks. But a few years ago, what I started to do was at the beginning of every new notebook, you always use the first couple pages to write yourself a love note. And the love note is about the things that you've overcome, how wonderful you are, like all those positive things that you need to hear on a day where you're not doing so good. It's also advice for those days where you're not doing so good on how to move forward from that day. So it's just got like all of that in there, all written from a place of love. And this one was different. So this book has the universe on it.
Oh,
so I decided I would write a letter to the universe first and then a love letter to myself.
I like that idea for journaling. If you're teaching journaling, that would be a great thing to say, to put something at the beginning, a poem, maybe even a song or something. So when you open it, that's wonderful. I like that. Yeah.
And now the collection of my notebooks is like a journal because I don't like to journal. So now I can see my progression and my growth over the years.
Yeah.
And exactly what I needed to hear in those moments. So when I have clients or an audience in that phase, I know exactly what to write.
I have an idea for you. I'm taking I have this whole notebook of me writing my grandmother at college and all that age, when I'm younger. And she's writing me back. She had to type because her handwriting was, you could not read it. You can barely read mine, but it's printing and it's beautiful. So I'm thinking of taking that as love letters back and forth, and love letters from my grandmother or something and putting it into an actual book on Amazon. So you could do that with those. Like even just your writing, just how it's written. Don't type it. Just leave it that way. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
With a little squiggles and all, right?
Everything, because mine is printed, and I was reading him just crying like she's going, Mila, I'm so proud of you. You've really proved yourself. I didn't think you would when you were in high school and blah, 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 and then me going back, oh, Granny, you're the most amazing person. I can't even believe that I get to be with you all the time. I mean, it was more like that. It was like these love letters before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an incredible experience, particularly for, what the experience was, you being with your grandmother and your grandmother being with the granddaughter, but then the level of change that she was part of is incredible.
Yeah, and then to go with this book, to go with this, and then I'm thinking I had to cut her memoir from 600 pages to 300 pages, so I'm thinking of doing the unabridged. Leave hers in there. It has all these names of people they could look up their grandmothers that she taught public speaking to, and do the unabridged. I had to take out like 100 was words because back then everybody wrote with was, and we're just not supposed to use those right now much. Supposed to show, not tell. Anyway, so I'm thinking a whole companion book, the love letters, the unabridged. This is a way to think, guys. What do you have already written that could become a book? That's what I'm teaching all these classes on right now. Dr. L has me teaching for him. I mean, do you have a college paper? Let's just pop that into a template. Do you have blogs? I had one woman I work with. She had 500 blogs. I go, oh my God, you got like 5 good books. And they're so well written. We started putting them into books. She had 20 books. So, there's ways of thinking about this.
Mm-hmm. I like how easy you make this. So do you have any advice for people who maybe have never written, or in my case, they've had teachers that told them, you'll never be a writer, but #1 best-selling author, right? What kind of advice do you have for those people just getting started in writing?
Here's the best advice I can give. Just start. Don't wait. Lather it down as fast as you can. You know, I always say that. And for the last 40 years, they've been writing articles in my town and other places about me. And I went back and found some of them, and they always title them, Just Start. Just do it. But here's the thing. Barbara Kingsolver says, write as fast as you can, blather it down, and fix it later. And she's right, because you know, Toni Morrison, the famous novelist, she said she wrote her first book in 15 minutes a day, because that's all the time she had between raising children and work. So the word on the street now is 20 minutes a day. I say even 5 minutes a day will add up to a book. And my mother tricked me into becoming a writer at 18. She said, Mila, I know you've always wanted to be a writer. Why don't you write 1 sentence a day for a month? And I went, oh, I can write 1 sentence a day, but I couldn't, because it's like potato chips. You have to write more. So by the end of the month, I was a writer. So I'm tricking you. 5 minutes a day.
You can't just write one. I love it. Okay, that's our lovely analogy. Once you start writing and you start making that practice, you're going to find it gets easier and easier, that the process between your mind and your fingers will get easier and easier. Or I know a lot of people who don't like to physically write, and so they'll type, or they don't like to physically type. I've heard this many times. Get your phone out, get something else out, record yourself, and then transcribe it. Like, don't let these things stop you. Do you have any?
Or do Zoom. You can do Zoom and you'll get the transcript. I'm teaching everyone to do that.
Yes. I was just about to ask. I was like, what do you have for those people that don't like to write?
Right. It's okay, because actually there's so many ways of doing it. And now we have Descript that will take out all our ums and filler words. There's a lot of things we can do. And also right now, even Laura, you could take a lot of your transcripts from your podcast, and a lot of people are putting those into books.
Part of what I'm doing, it is one of the books that I want to write. You know that question that I asked you about the 3 words? That's one of the books that I want to write. I love the idea of knowing why people do the things that they do. So this simple question, I also love awareness questions. So this simple question tells me so much about who you are as a human being and how you do business before you ever tell me what your business is and the skills that you have. Like, there's so many subtleties. So then the question becomes is, once you guys have no idea what it is I'm going to do with this stuff, and then I just kind of blatantly ask you, then I can go back to these interviews that are recorded and stored for me and start to see the patterns. And okay, here's what they said at the beginning: generous to a fault, spontaneous and creative. How did they explain it in their words? What did it mean to them? How did it come out in the work that they do? And I want to compile all that data, simplify, and then show people the patterns.
That's a great idea. And for a cover, you could take the words and put them all slanted all over the cover. That would be a cool cover with maybe your picture all ethereal in the middle. I don't know. I can't stop you guys. My imagination. Yeah, I wasn't a good student. The teachers hated me because I was always looking out in the clouds. But I was training to become a writer. And the only thing I ever did well in high school was typing. So that's good for a writer too. I can type 75 words a minute, not accurate. Finger placement. Everybody should have finger placement. Please teach your kids finger placement.
I've tried many times. I generally type with these fingers. Sometimes I type with these or these, but like my ring finger almost never touches a key. And I can type fast if I just look at the keyboard and do this. I tried for years. I worked at a boring job. I worked at a dry cleaners / lotto booth in the middle of a grocery store. So every once in a while, somebody would come up for lotto tickets or bringing in their dry cleaning or picking it up. So I spent most of my time trying to learn the finger placement and trying to write the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog because it has all of the letters in it. I spent a year doing that and I still couldn't do it. So I'm like, fine, I'll just go back to the 6 fingers.
That's okay. My husband hunts and picks. I just so glad I do, because I can just fly through writing books. But here's another big thing though. Guess what? They did a Harvard study and they found out that if everyone handwrites their notes in a class, they retain the information more. And so I started going back to writing in notebooks and for part-time, like when I'm on vacation or something. And I find that if I handwrite, I get way deeper plots and ideas and themes coming through. So I'm trying to do some of both, actually. So
yeah. Sometimes I have this big problem. My mind goes really, really quickly. My mouth can't keep up to my mind, and my hand trying to write things out because I know it's better. It's not even close. So by the time I've got one word done in my hand, I've got 3 sentences in my head, and then I forgot where I was. I can't
but
go
there's a
back.
secret. There's a secret to that. Just rewrite, keep writing, because it will actually come out better the second and third time. I've learned this over the years. I understand.
Mila, is there a point when you're writing with the pen that it all almost opens up your subconscious, and then suddenly that flow kicks in for you?
Yeah, when I write novels, these people, and I've heard this from other novelists, these characters come into the book and take over, and they become like secondary characters or even main. And I've had it happen so many times that I'm like, okay, if you're here, let's go. I let that happen, and you're right. And it's when I'm handwriting, it happens more. Right, Tom.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like something that starts beaming in, and so that's interesting. It's happened a few times, so I have to grab onto that and utilize it more.
I think I'm a slave. I think the muses go, look, give her the info. She'll write it. Because once I get an idea, it's really bad. I can't shut it down, and I have to write the book. And so I think the muses realize I'll do the work, so they give me all this stuff. That's what I think's going on.
Well, they know that's going to get done.
Yeah, they want their ideas out, and or maybe it's the idea that's good for the universe. A collective theme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that they you've been doing it, and you're the workhorse, versus someone that is drawing a circle, and they're like nothing's coming out of them, but everything's coming out of you, so they're going to come back to you.
Good point. In fact, the book I wrote about the giving and the funny yogi and the surfer girl in San Diego. I was told to write that book, so I went home and started writing it, and it just kind of wrote itself. I can't even believe how good it is. It's better than anything I've ever written. I don't know.
Sometimes when I'm meditating, I will close my eyes. I'll have the pen in my hand, and I'll have some paper in front of me. And it doesn't have to be words. Sometimes it's just I have to keep my hand moving. Just keep it moving. So there'll be squiggles and shapes, and all kinds of things. And sometimes there's a word in there. But then my hand also wants to move to different parts of the page too. So I'm like, if I could just start by meditating and letting my hand do whatever, then when I go to write afterwards, it tends to want to keep moving. So that's
I love that. Yes. I love that. You could be a complete, channel.
I don't know if you can see. I'll just move the light out of the way. There's like a bunch of weird squiggles. It doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't need to make sense. It's like the practice is not to make sense. The practice is to just keep going. So, yeah, somebody was telling me about channeling and light language. It's like, I don't know. I'm just making my hand move. Yeah. But I want to check the time. So, Mila, I want to make sure that we know where to find you and your favorite way of communicating.
I think email's the best because as a writer, I'm always on my email all day. So it's my name backwards, johansenmila@gmail.com. And my website has all of my programs of teaching theater on, and a lot about my grandmother, a whole section of places about her and what she did. And so my website's real simple, milajohansen.com.
Thank you. And I'd like to hold space. That's okay. Tom's coming in and out, probably because of his internet. That's okay. I like to hold space at the end of the interview just to give you a chance to share whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your head, with the question, if there's something that you needed people to take away from this conversation today, what might that be?
Well, I think if everyone would join me in my passion quest of giving more and go out and give one thing today tomorrow, this week to somebody, and then feel how good it feels, and then want to do more, and go out and give as much as you can. Never be afraid that you're giving too much, because what I found out is in my life, I have to give more than my share usually, but it always comes back to me tenfold. And so just don't be afraid of it, and give as much as you can. Do little things, big things, medium things. But even if it's just opening a door like we were talking about before, or paying a meter, or smiling at someone, just give as much as you can, wherever you can, in all the places you can.
Ooh, I double check the time again. My thing keeps popping down. In the next 60 seconds or so, is there some sort of crazy cool, like rub a genie lamp, turn the light switch on, snap your fingers kind of deal? If you could do something crazy cool as that kindness gesture, that compliment for people, whatever it happens to be, what might that look like?
I would just, as a genie, just wish everyone would want to go out and give and do what's best for the children of our world, and world peace. I'm sorry, but I know that sounds crazy, but I always wish for world peace. I can't believe that we don't do it now. I can't believe that people aren't doing what's best for the children and their families and themselves. And another big thing I always work on is no pesticide. We've grown organic food for 50, 60 years on our ranch, and we're the pioneers in organic, and there is no reason ever. We didn't have poisons on this planet until about 1960s. And so we need to stop that too. That's a no-brainer. Why are we going to poison ourselves? Or why can't we have peace? It's like, let's do art and make books and graphics and art and giving. So I hope that answers it, right?
No, there's no right answer. It's what would be crazy cool for you. And you told us what would be crazy cool for you. I'm going to bring you back up, Tom. Turns out we have an earlier day than we expected, but that's okay. That's okay. I could use the break.
Mila, I really enjoyed what you had to say today.
Not
only that, but the way the energy came out, and just really, really look forward to seeing your future work and possibly working with you.
Oh, for sure. I'd love to do anything with either of you. You're a great joy, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Mila, technically your interview time is over, but since we're going to end the show, do you have a few minutes to spend with us, and we can wrap up and maybe chat just for a few minutes?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. I just didn't want
meeting at 11, but that's it.
Okay. So usually what we do at the end of the show is we share something that stood out to us, or something that we liked, or something that we learned. So I want to start with you, Mila. Out of our conversation today, was there something that stood out to you or that you enjoyed?
Well, I like that, how you start journals and giving yourself a love letter or something positive. So even if there was something that wasn't positive inside the journal, we're starting it right, and we're giving ourselves a message for the future.
Thank you. What about you, Tom? Anything that stood out or that you enjoyed today?
I enjoyed all of it. It was, again, with 45 minutes with today, 5 different people, but 5 people with a similar message, and it, just highly intriguing, just high level messages in a very simple form. There was a very nice underlying message that came through with everyone. And so that's been the wonderful part of today.
I like that too. Ooh, okay. Out of all of the people, I'm going to switch to who we had today. Out of all of the people that we interviewed today, I think my favorite part was the laughter today. We've had some deep conversations this week, some surface level conversations this week. Like it's gone up and down and everywhere, and that's so much fun. But today, there were so many laughs. And I think that's what I needed personally, just to kind of let go some of that tension in my body. So I appreciate everybody playing and everybody laughing and just finding the fun, trying to use the words people used. Some listening, some generosity, some caring, and being humorous today. I really like that. Yeah. Okay, so this is the end of today's Thursday 4, so day 4 of Blue Talks Amplify Your Message. We will be back again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern till 2:30 p.m. Eastern. I have to translate the times in my head. Same bat channel, same bat time. It's all good. If you would like to join us or if you have questions, please put them in the comments, or you can send any of us a direct message. It'll get to me. We like to spend time together. We like to ask some questions. We like to explore who the people are, why they chose the ways of sharing their message that they did. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve you and give, as Mila has been saying this whole time. I also want to say, Tom, I appreciate you again so much for coming on last minute to be co-host with me. Can you tell us just a little bit about your experience today, just last minute, never doing this before, co-hosting?
Loved it. I love the interaction, love the conversation. The mix of, let's say, a deeper level conversation, the invisible energy that connects all of us, along with everyday practical advice.
Thank you.
And melding those, those two worlds. Actually, they've always been melding, but just that we're aware of them on a higher collective level, and seeing more and more of that happening every single day. So, it's just another testament to, that this energy is simply going to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah. So did either of you have any sort of final comments or final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Oh, I just want to thank you for having me, and it's been wonderful, and to get to know you more, Tom, as well.
You as well, Mila. Say hi to Irma for me. I really, she's got a special place in my heart.
Aww.
Yeah, she's a special person. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Aww. So again, thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. No. Don't forget to share anything that you found helpful with somebody that you think could benefit from it. We would love that so much. So much love from me and from my guests and my team. Mwah. Thank you so much. We will see you again tomorrow. And then we do a little song as we press end stream.